Here, so.
This conference will now be recorded.
There you go.
You want me to start over again? I'm exhausted already, Becky. All right. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information on the general guidelines for the remote participation can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen or to watch the meeting may do so either online via the town's on-demand video broadcast, on cable television, on channel 191, or dial into the meeting at 774-304-1455 and enter 1428 pound for the meeting number. And access code is 12345. So this phone number is only active during the public meeting. But no in-person attendance of the members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Right. That read, I will read the public hearing notice so that we won't have to read this over and over again during the meeting. In the interest of saving time, the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will hold all public hearings tonight for work within a wetland, water body, or resource area and/or within the 200-foot buffer zone to a wetland, water body, or resource area in accordance with Mass Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and associated regulations, and the Town of Sturbridge Wetlands Bylaw and associated regulations. We will not be reading the newspaper ad. Prior to opening the first hearing of each project, the applicant is to submit proof of notification to abutters within 200 feet of the subject property line and proof of legal newspaper advertisement. If these items are not submitted, the public hearing will not be opened. Additionally, prior to the start of each public hearing, we will announce the location of the project, the applicant, and the applicant's representative. That being said, and I'll repeat because you hadn't turned it on, we have a full quorum tonight. Everyone is in attendance. So, saying that, we got a few minutes, Becky, before that. How do you want to proceed?
Yep, so we're going to go to section 2. We're going to do wetland decisions that are not part of the public hearing.
All right.
Yep, so we have 3 there that we can start with.
All right, go ahead. We'll start with number 14, which is 17 South Road, SWB letter permit application, construction of a house addition.
Okay, so I have the plan up here for you. Let me just get to that section here. So this is a house addition project in a developed single-family house lot. The project is located within the outer buffer zone. We did do a site visit out here a couple weeks ago. The area of the work is flat, but it does drop off kind of steeply below the septic there. The project is going to be located on pilings. No earth removal is proposed as part of the project. No gutters or downspouts are proposed either. Roof runoff will be allowed to drip below to an area covered with pea stone. I don't have any concerns with the project as proposed. I would recommend approval of the project. I don't see the need for erosion controls as they're not doing any earthwork. Any changes to the projects, it should be noted if there are any changes to the project would require additional review, including earthwork or the directing of roof runoff to the wetland.
All right. That being said, is there anyone here to speak for the applicant?
No, nope.
No? Any comments from members of the Conservation Commission?
Of course.
Go ahead.
I have one question, Becky.
Yep.
When you talk about the area of drainage being the pea stone, is it only pea stone spread on the ground, or is it in fact similar to a drip strip?
There's a deck currently in the location of where the addition is and where it's shown as the existing deck, and the whole area is covered with pea stones underneath that.
My concern is that the rain comes down in torrents. Pea stone absorbs in drips and drabs. That's why we normally ask for a drip strip, which is like at least a foot deep and like 8, 10, 12 inches wide, and it's filled with pea stone so that it can absorb the water and not get it to run. And it sounded to me like this was merely pea stone that was all over the place.
I'm not sure how deep the pea stone is there, but it is a big area, and it's in the outer buffer zone, so it's pretty far from the wetland, and there is vegetated lawn and field before you get to the actual wetland.
So you have no real concerns, despite the fact that it can run a bit.
For the size of the addition and the distance to the resource area, I would say no. If it was a lot closer to resource area, like when we see, the projects in the lakes, we always look for additional BMPs for that roof runoff, but we haven't consistently been asking for things in the outer extent of buffer zone to include that. And here, with the proximity of the leach field and the D-box, et cetera, that could, I guess, maybe be of a concern of trenching in that area. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Any trees to be removed, Becky?
Beg your pardon?
Any trees to be removed, Becky?
No.
No, nope.
No.
Okay. Thanks.
Steve, anything from you? You're
I'm good.
You're good.
Thanks.
And I also am good. Do I have a motion to accept the plan, the letter permit?
So moved, Eric Gaspar.
Do I have a second?
second. Steve Alderman.
Steve Alderman. All in favor would be, or any discussion? Any at all? We've had, okay. All in favor? Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David?
Good Barnacle in favor.
Steve?
Steve Halterman in favor.
And Ed in favor. Okay. Becky, you want to go to the next one?
Sure.
Let's wait a few minutes. All right.
All right, I have two images to show you here. I was gonna put together something over in aerial, and I didn't get to it for this one, but this is 91 Cedar Street. This is another wetland bylaw letter permit application for the installation of a 24-foot above-ground pool within an existing developed single-family house lot. All the work is proposed within lawn. I did do a site visit out here and met the property owner. Now I'm gonna pull up the aerial photo just to give you an idea of what we're looking at here. So this is the house lot here. Pool is proposed right behind the house. Wetland is here. You can see the change of vegetation. We got some green lawn, and then you can see there's some darker, browner vegetation here. This is all a bordering vegetated wetland back here. The above ground pool is approximately about 70 feet away from the wetland. The area does gently slope down towards resource area. Talk to the property owner. There's where they're putting the pool isn't 100% level, so there is some excavation that would be required. What they would do is they would, I had recommended they put up straw wattles between the work area and the wetland. And then the access area route for equipment would be coming up from the north of the house down this way. And then some of the spoils removed would be used up further in the yard where my mouse is to level that off, and it would be seeded and seeded with lawn. That's what's there now. I don't have any concerns. I'd recommend approval with the BMPs that I discussed there. Access comes from the north. Erosion controls are installed between work area and the resource area, and then that the removed materials can be used, but needs to be seeded and protected by erosion controls.
All right. Any comments from anyone?
One question for Becky. Did you mention in your order of conditions the drainage into the wetland?
Oh,
Pool?
good point. No, I didn't write that on this one, but right, pool water is not to be, discharged into resource areas. Thank you. I had that on the other one on here, but,
Okay, good. Good catch, David. Good catch. Yeah. Anything else? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor?
David?
David Barnacle in favor with the order of conditions indicated by Becky.
Yeah. Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
And Steve Haldeman? Steve Goodman in favor? And Ed Goodwin in favor. All right, Becky, you want to go back to and start the hearings, or do you want to go?
it's too early,
16.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, we can go on to number 16.
609.
We have a little bit more
Go
time.
ahead.
So just so you're aware, we had someone that was interested in coming in and doing an informal presentation at the beginning of the meeting. That's why we started the public hearings a little bit later than we're doing on the past meetings. They weren't prepared to present something to you, so that's why we had the gap here. But luckily, we have some stuff we can fill in. So next, we have 21 Bennett's Road. This is a request for a certificate of compliance, DEP file number 300-928. The property owner realized that they hadn't closed out this permit as part of their refinancing of their home. It came up as the title, under the title search. We pulled out the file. We had noted that the project was approved. The deck was actually to be located, it's not shown on here, between the house and the lake. And they did come back and request a change from the commission. You did approve a minor amendment to the order to relocate the deck, which you can see here outlined with the purple highlighter, the dashed purple on the plan. It was noted that they had to do an as-built plan after they put the deck in, and we didn't have that. So I did request that. I did receive that and a letter of substantial compliance from the engineer. And I did do a site visit, and I didn't have any concerns with the project. Therefore, I would recommend issuance of a complete certificate of compliance. There were no noted perpetual conditions in the order.
All right. Any comments from the members of the board? Seeing none, Mr. Barnacle, how do you vote?
In favor, David Barnacle.
Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor?
Steve? Steve Halterman in favor. And Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor.
Great. So we have 4 more minutes. Do you want to go down to administrative decisions for the minutes?
Sure.
Sure.
All right, so we have the minutes of March 16th, 2021 to be approved. I reviewed them and I'd recommend approval.
Any recommendations?
Approve the minutes as written.
No, I was just, if,
Oh, sorry.
would
Everybody else?
anybody else have any comments? Seeing none, approve. Motion to approve from Eric. I have a second.
I'll second it, Steve Halderman.
Steve Alderman. Any discussion? Seeing none, how do you vote, Eric?
Eric Gaspar approve.
Stephen Chittister?
Stephen Chittister, I approve.
David?
David Barnacle abstain. I haven't read them yet. Sorry.
Steve Alderman? Steve Halterman, I approve. And Ed Goodwin, I approve. So, one abstention, Becky.
Okay.
Are we now ready to go to 6:15?
I have 2 more minutes. Do you want to do committee updates?
Sure.
We can do lakes, that'll be a long one.
Go ahead, Eric, you're on. Anything Anything happen with Lakes?
Nothing to report, shockingly. I know, that's gonna make you guys all swoon, but unfortunately, nothing to report.
From the point of view of CPC, the only thing that's came forward was the discussion of the Fisk Hill property. I don't know off the top of my head what the numbers are, and the possibility of the town purchasing it. And I think a slot was asked for to, in case the town decides to go forward. So that's about it. Anything, David, on trails?
I'm equally quick with Mr. Gaspar. There was a less than 1 hour meeting on Friday, but that had to do with finances. And there's another Trails Committee meeting next Thursday, but we haven't had the regular meeting. There has been a lot of activity relative to the meeting that was held at the Board of Selectmen last night, relative to developing trails off from the Fisk Hill and Old Farm Road, but unfortunately I wasn't able to access that from the cable. Now, I did understand that the Board of Selectmen have moved in the position of bringing it forward through the town meeting in order to get the funding to purchase that property. So the right of first refusal is being accepted by the town of Sturbridge, if I understand it correctly from afar.
Okay,
Interesting.
go ahead. Who's going to speak? I have one comment, David. I spent a little time on the trails this last weekend, and there needs to be more signs out there to get this guy off every now and then to get to find my way out. I was on a,
Well, I think the problem may be, Mr. Chairman, that most of the signage is written in English, and there are many things that are more than 4 letters long.
I know. I need a swear word in there every now and then, I guess. That's probably it. But I mean, like the mill trail, is that what it is? The Sawmill Trail.
Sawmill Trail, yeah.
Sawmill Trail.
Oh,
Unbelievable.
that's a beauty.
Yeah.
Hey, so how about this one from Trails, just so that everybody can cheer up? It was a picture that was sent to the Trails Committee that showed 3 different signs in one location. Now, what the person had done was stopped at a corner, and this person caught the picture perfectly. So there was a sign to the left, there was a sign to the right, and there was a sign facing directly toward the person taking the picture. And the comment on the email that was sent in was, all right, which way do I go?
All right. I think we're now to that point where we can move to the public. 615, 5 Turner Lane, an RDA installation of an in-ground swimming pool. Applicant is Darlene and Paul Laflemme. No representative. Becky, what do you have to say? Good.
Yep, so I'll give you the information on this. I'm going to share my screen again to show you. All right, I think you can see that. All right, so we have, this is a request for determination of applicability. We do have receipt of legal ad posting and butter notifications. We actually do have those for all of our public hearings in case I forget to mention it for any of the other ones later on in the meeting. What they're doing here, it's the construction of an in-ground pool located within an existing developed single-family house lot, which is within the buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetland off of an intermittent stream. So we were able to pull out the plans for when this house lot was developed, which is what you see on the left-hand side here. You can see that the wetlands are outlined in blue. We have orange is the 50-foot buffer, and yellow is the 100-foot. So the actual installation of the pool is partially within the 100-foot buffer zone. The access area, which you can see on the right-hand side of the plan, is at or just within the 50-foot buffer zone there. So the plan is to install the above in-ground pool, and then they're looking at using the spoil materials at the kind of, outer extent of the 200-foot, between the 200-foot and 100-foot buffer zone to level off that portion of the yard. No resource areas downslope of that area. No tree removal is proposed as part of the project. A project will include a concrete patio and fence around the pool. They do show erosion controls, straw wattles, located between the work area and the resource area. It is fairly flat in that area, so I don't anticipate, erosion issues in that area, especially since the stockpiling will be used on the opposite side of the other side of the property. I would recommend for this that you vote to issue a negative number 3 and a positive number 5. And with that, I would recommend our standard construction conditions we use for pool installation. In addition, where I remember to do it in this one, that no pool water is discharged into wetlands.
All right. And the applicant's not here, right?
Correct, yep, when we were
All
on,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any comments from committee members?
Well, I have a question about the exact positioning of the pool.
Mm-hmm.
See where the bulge out is toward the north as we look at the plan?
Mm-hmm.
What if that bulge out was facing left, instead of north, was facing straight west? Would that not remove a section of it from the 50-foot buffer zone?
Well, I don't think the actual
No, it's not in the
pool
50 bit.
will be within the 50-foot. I think it's it would be outside of it. In the patio.
Where exactly is,
I'll zoom in here and show you. The buffer zone's not on this one, but if you look at the plan on the left-hand side, the orange line is the 50-foot buffer zone. So it pretty much kind of
Oh.
carries at that driveway turnaround section. But let me zoom in a little bit to the pool, if it lets me. So you can see here the pool area. Concrete patio is the rounded area around the pool, and then that's just a fence, the pool code fence, I think he writes it on here, that goes around it. So the 50-foot buffer, based off of the actual site plan we have, kind of carries along this line right here, so it's pretty much just the fence that's gonna be within there, if, or at the edge of that 50-foot. So, and that's all developed, yard back there.
when I blew it up on my computer, it seemed like it was getting closer to the XXX. Is that not bordering vegetative wetlands?
I think the line he's showing right here, well, he's showing the 50-foot buffer there. He's showing that as the straw wattle. This right here, this
Yeah.
area right here, these little
Yes.
X's, that's opposite the side of the wetland. That's where they're gonna use the spoil material to kind of level out the yard.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my point was, if the straw wattles are 35 feet away from the pool,
Yep.
if we angled the pool differently, would the straw wattles not be that much further away from the pool? And I thought that was indicative of where the wetland was. So I was basing everything on the straw wattles, apparently.
The straw wattles are the edge of mow area currently.
Yeah, they're just putting him at the edge of the yard.
He's just put them at the edge of the mow area, David. On that side, and it's probably a good place because it drops off maybe a foot and a half as it angles downward from the fill that was put in when they put the lawn in. So I think he's, there are no trees being cut. To the back of the pool, he's got a little chicken coop with some Orpingtons in there, and I thought this was a good site for the pool. I don't know. Stephen, you saw it. What do you think?
Yeah, actually, I'm trying to remember if I saw this or not, but I certainly don't have an issue with it based on what I see.
Stephen?
I saw it, and I think it was fine. I was a little scared by those chickens. I've never seen such a big chicken, but I like the area of the pool.
Well, he's got the barnacle chicken growing, talent. No roosters allowed.
Well, those chickens would kill any fox that came around.
I doubt it, but
They were pretty big.
on that note, do I have a motion to close the public?
Let me go to the public first.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Good. Thanks, Beck.
No problem.
Becky, is that Aaron that you have working with you?
Yeah.
Good evening. Is there
And no
anyone on the
TA?
public line who would like to speak to the 5 Turner Lane RDA on an installation of an in-ground swimming pool? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 5 Turner Lane RDA?
There's nobody on the line.
All right. With that, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
I move we
David Barnett.
Okay,
I heard a second in there.
we got one of each. Any discussion, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of closing the public hearing? Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor?
David?
David Barnacle in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Steve?
Steve Halterman in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. All right, do we have a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the RDA for the installation of an in-ground swimming pool at 5 Turner Lane with -3 and a -5 as indicated by the agent and the order of conditions as indicated by the agent.
Was it a -5 or a plus?
That was a positive 5.
Positive 5? Okay.
Sorry,
All right, good.
I need a second.
Yeah, second?
Eric Gaspar, second.
Okay, all right, Stevie beat you again. What can you do, huh?
Not a race.
Any
I'm
discussion?
a miler, not a sprinter.
All in favor? Steve Haldeman,
Steve Halterman in favor.
David,
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen,
Stephen Chittister in favor.
and Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Ned Goodwin in favor. On that, we go to, we at 625 here? We are, right at 625. 51 Seneca Lane, we have a notice of intent, construction of a new single-family home, associated site work, and doc-DP file. We have a file number, Beck?
File
We
number
do, right?
came in this evening. We do. It's 300-1098.
1098, okay. All right, Becky, you want to start it off?
Sure, just give a quick summary. So this is construction of a single-family house on Cedar Lake. Work is located within buffer zone. There is a temporary dock proposed, so that would result in impacts to land underwater. And we also have bank on site, which unclear if there's associated bank impacts with the temporary dock. And we also have bordering land subject to flooding on the property. So I'm going to pull up the plans here. Let me share my screen with you. I'm just going to start with using this one because it's colored and easy to look at here. So as you can see on the screen, we have the red line is our 25-foot buffer, orange we have 50, yellow for 100, and the purplish pink color one is our 200-foot buffer zone. So we did perform a site visit last week out here. We did meet the engineer. We did look at the area, talked about the work scope associated with the modular home installation. We have been provided with a 4-sheet plan set that kind of details the operation kind of setup area needed for the modular home and crane. We did discuss on site the relocation of a telephone pole that's part of the project. And as we walked down lower, we did look at the limit of work area, areas that were developed lawn, some questions they come up about some additional trees that maybe could be saved as part of this project. Overall, we've been working with the engineer on this project for a little while. They've included things that we would be looking for, different BMPs, driveway runoff infiltration. We have roof runoff infiltration. We've worked with them to keep developed areas out of the 50-foot buffer zone, so we do have a nice vegetated buffer. remaining along the shoreline. They are proposing a pervious walkway down to a temporary dock there. They've kind of worked to locate that, to not have to remove any trees or any, significant impacts to roots in that area. The siting of the dock also, where it's located doesn't appear to require any tree removal. It might just require some shrub removal. I did speak to the engineer after the site visit, just to go over the temporary dock, just looking for a little bit more information. Would that dock be required to be anchored to the bank? We've seen some different designs, some roll-in, roll-out ones that don't require anchoring. So just, I think it's important to understand how that dock is going to be anchored and if that results in any bank impact, and then just looking at what the land underwater impact is associated with that. But those are pretty minor details that I think we can work out for that. Overall, they were going to look at the retention of those 3 trees, or at least that one larger tree if it wasn't able to, they weren't able to save all of those. So we can hear from the engineer about that aspect of the project. But overall, the only comment that DEP had with their file number that they issued tonight was that it could require a Chapter 91 license for the dock, but they've indicated that's a temporary dock, so that would just need local harbor master approval.
All right. Steve, are you with us?
I am.
All right. Your turn. You are the engineer on this, right? Am I reading it?
No, Steve Brissett. Andy Baum's on here. I'm not sure if Steve Brissett's on here too.
Oh, okay. It was Steve Brissett. Is Steve here?
I see him on here. He's just muted, so
I saw him on here.
there we go.
There he is.
I am here. Andy's going to handle the presentation.
Yeah.
And I am on. Andy is going to handle the presentation.
Okay. Hi, Andy. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Andy Baum from Summit Engineering. We're here on behalf of the applicant, Brian Sampson. As Becky described, it's about a 9/10 of an acre lot located on Seneca Lane. On the plan, Seneca Lane is located to your left and Cedar Lake is located to your right. For those of you that were on the site walk, you'll know that the lot is pretty much bisected by a power line, utility pole power line that goes through the lot, and it's about just inside the 200-foot local buffer by the purple line shown on that plan. And behind that, the site drops off pretty substantially. It's fairly flat in the front yard, and then it drops off to the back towards Cedar Lake. Some of the challenges with this project were, one, that power line that substantiated where we placed the house. And then secondly, this is a proposed modular home. Requires the staging of a crane for the building assembly, as well as storage or staging area for all of the units that would be used to assemble the prefabricated building. That shaded yellow area indicates the patio area, and then the back is terraced with some retaining walls, and then, as Becky had described, there's a proposed walkway and stairs to get down to the temporary dock area. The site is serviced by municipal sewer, so there's a low-pressure sewer ejector pump off the front of the building, I believe. And then also off the front of the building is a proposed on-site well. Quite a bit of thought went into, as Becky indicated, minimizing the amount of disturbance to root zones in the trees, particularly within the 100-foot buffer area. And then secondly, there's also a planting plan that was included in the submission to replant. A lot of the vegetation will be removed in the front yard as part of the staging area. From a drainage perspective, off the back, you'll see 8 rectangles, and that's the direct roof drain recharge for runoff from the roof, recharge back to groundwater. And in the front, in that page northwest planting area, we're able to work with the grade quite a bit to pitch the water. Yep, thank you. Pitch the water into that area from the driveway to again encourage surface water treatment and recharge without flowing onto an abutting property. Becky indicated there was some some trees that we talked about on site, particularly a 24-inch oak. It's located, I think it's right off where that walk makes that T adjustment.
I can show another,
You think we can,
yeah, I pulled up this
Yeah.
other plan that shows, right here.
yep, right there. So we believe that we can move the grading around, Mr. Chairman, to be able to salvage that tree and not have to remove it. But we haven't made the plan adjustments. We'd like to try to do it as a field adjustment rather than try to get information that went into that walkway. I'd like to try not to draft it all up. We want to accept it as a condition of approval. The only thing I can answer would be the dock anchoring. I don't know if Steve has any other information on that, or the applicant, which I believe is on the phone, on what they were proposing to anchor how they're going to anchor the dock to the shore.
All right, well, do we want to hear that from the applicant or from Steve?
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. This is Brian Sampson. I'm the applicant. Oh, can you hear me? Hello?
Can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so this is Brian Sampson. Start over again. I am the applicant. So I do not have a plan for the dock yet. I purposely made it removable to try to lessen the impact. I considered the roller dock, but if there's a better solution, I can do that. I'm open to what is best for the area and for the committee. I don't know if the engineers have any suggestions on the dock. I just recently heard about the question about the dock. I did not have an answer prepared.
Okay. Well, I don't know how the rest of the committee feels. Let me go through the committee and start out with you, Stephen. What are your comments?
Yeah, so overall, I'm good with the plan, except the question of, so there were 3 trees that we looked at. I know you mentioned the 24-inch oak, so that's great. That was probably the most important of the 3. But are you saying that the other 2 would be removed? And then my question is, if you're taking those trees down and you're converting that to lawn, what are you doing with the stumps? Maybe the engineers can answer that question.
Yeah, this is Steve Brissett from Summit. And, yeah, so we did take a look at those, Steve. Now, on the plan, there are 3 stumps near the top of the bank, and that we said that we were going to grind and leave in place. And the other ones that are away from the bank, we plan to remove so that we can plant the lawn. And as far as the 3 trees that we discussed removing, we agreed, I'm not going to say we agreed, but the proponents agreed to leave the 24-inch, but they would still like to take out the other 2 because it really affects the alignment of where that sidewalk is going down to the lake into that play area. And again, we're trying to plant grass there. That's blocking the southern exposure, which is going to make it very difficult to grow grass.
Okay. David? Comments?
Well, I have 2. The first one has to do with that 24-inch oak. It was good that Mr. Baum indicated that they were going to protect it. What I'd like to make certain of is that we have that minimum 15-foot radius around it to protect it. Because it's one thing to say, yeah, I got it protected, and on 3 of the 4 sides you have it protected, and on the 4th side you're right up against it, and the roots get cut and the tree falls down 5 years later, and the owner has got the liability. So if we can assure that we have a 15-foot buffer around it, I think that would be good. Mr. Baum.
So on the plan, Dave, it does show the protective root zone for that, which currently the alignment of the walkway goes within that. But I did discuss with Becky the fact that if everybody agrees to save the 124-inch oak, that we would change the alignment of the sidewalk to avoid that root zone as much as possible. It's a drafting exercise that's going to take hours and hours, and I just figured before we did that we would agree that that was the only tree that was going to remain and the others were going to be removed, and then we would change that alignment accordingly to minimize the impact on the root system. And also, the other people on the sidewalk would also agree that the canopy of that tree is very small. It's a large tree, but there's a very small canopy, so the protected root zone is probably much less than a 15-foot circle.
All right, Steve Paul.
I still have a second question,
Oh,
so you can get back to me later.
go ahead. I didn't see the
But we would still do our best to honor it with a no disturbance with that sidewalk.
Well, of course, the sidewalk is not going to help protect the tree because it's any kind of absorption of minerals or water. My second question has to do with a comment that was made by Rebecca when she gave the initial site visit report. She indicated that there was a comment about pole being moved. Is that going to become a necessary component of this? In order for the builder to be able to bring in the component parts?
Yes, it's right in the center of the driveway, yeah. There's already been a plan in place since 2019 to relocate that pole. Apparently, the previous owners of the property, whether they didn't want to spend the money to do it or whatever, they pulled the work request. So the work request has been renewed so that does take place.
Okay. Steve, we have
right in the middle of the
long
drive.
and sordid history of people trying to get poles moved by the current group of people responsible for pole movement, and it is not a pretty one. And so I would suggest that the Conservation Commission not approve this plan until there is some sort of approval by some authority that that pole can be moved. Otherwise, the plan has to be modified.
Excuse me, did you folks hear me at the last bit? I'm having a hard time hearing you folks.
Who is?
I heard you fine.
Steve, you having trouble hearing us?
Yeah, I'm having trouble hearing you folks. You're breaking up. I'm getting bits and pieces here and there. Like I said, the work request had been approved to move that pole. National Grid has already put a stake in the ground where that pole is going to be moved to. However, somehow that work request was shut down. They've reopened it. And as far as I understand, the last thing we discussed with them is as soon as we can provide them access to that pole, they're going to put it on the schedule to move that pole.
Good. That's excellent. But it doesn't really change what David stated, which is that we'd be concerned with allowing the project to start and then have you come back and say, well, we can't do it that way because we were unable to get the pole moved. Now we want to do it another way. Now, I know it hasn't been you, Steve, but we have heard this before.
Okay.
Yeah. David, do you have any more questions? Steve Alderman?
Oh, I'm good, thanks.
My one, I think we need to firm up that dock. I mean, wetlands protection is what we do for our job, and you're talking about vague and temporary for what we're going to end up with at the lake. I think that needs to be firmed up by your engineers. That isn't something we bring to you, it's something you bring to us.
Okay. We can work on what I understand is going to be an aluminum type constructed, either a roll-in or an easy setup type thing you take in, take out.
And that sounds great, but we'd like to get that ink to paper and
and as you know, the selectmen are the harbor masters, so.
I understand that, yep.
Yeah, no, I know you do. I'm not, so I'd like to get that tightened down too. Anything else from the Conservation Commission?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. So Steve, just to be clear, the extra 2 oak trees that are being removed where the lawn is going, I believe they're oaks. The other 2 trees at any rate, those, you're going to remove the stumps, completely remove them. Is that in the,
Correct,
in the roots?
because they're near the bottom of the slope, not at the top of the slope. I was more concerned with the roots, the stumps that were near the top of the slope that actually goes down to the water as far as removing them and destabilizing the soil than I was about the trees at the base of that slope.
Okay. We're just going to need to make sure we have some serious erosion controls there.
Yes, sir.
And Stephen, what do you think about replacement?
It's a tree. It's heavily treed down by the lake.
It is seriously wooded.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's undergrowth and there's bushes along the bank. There's a lot of trees.
Becky, do you want to move forward with this? Close this out with what we have? Or would you, because you've got it.
Well, I think
Yeah.
the only question is for the dock. So if the dock, you know, and I recommend, I think the temporary dock is a good solution for the site.
Hello?
But we don't know how.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello?
Who's speaking? Who's saying hello?
Oh, did you turn that one down? Yeah. It's coming from over there.
All right, we'll continue.
Oh, okay. All right, so as far as the dock is concerned, if it's gonna be anchored to the bank, that would be a bank impact, permittable, but we still need to know what the mechanism is for doing that. And, you know, sometimes we see that people have to put, you know, step back a little bit, they put concrete, kind of anchors in that they can then tie off to. There's different things, so I think, you know, if they wanna include the dock with this permitting, we should know how it's gonna be adhered, so that way we can calculate those impacts in here, and then also just with the footings, what the land underwater impact associated with the footings would be for the structure. I think those are minor things, but I think it's just important to have that because it actually would be, I don't know what that sounds like, resource area impacts that should be noted within the order, so that he has the proper approval for it.
That's not the only issue, Becky. We also brought up the issue of the pole movement.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, all I can do is reiterate on that. So in the notice, I did put down that there'd be approximately 6 feet of disturbance on the bank associated with the walk in the dock area. I did not calculate a footprint because I did not have any details of the dock other than the fact that it's going to be an aluminum lightweight removable dock. As far as the pole, we've had a previous approval for the relocation. I've been told by the designers there's no issue. They just need access to the site.
Okay.
So, just out of curiosity, Becky, what is allowable for disturbance for the dock? And can we condition this such that allows them to move forward with the project within the allowable disturbances with the understanding and condition that it will be a aluminum removable dock, and any change from that would need to come back in front of the commission. Is that possible so they can move forward if we're okay with approving it?
Yeah, I think you could use your discretion and say, okay, there's 6 feet of bank impact associated with the installation of a temporary dock. However, if it's 6 feet of concrete being poured on there versus 6 feet of this shrubs, it's a little bit different. So I think if we could outline, if there was a way to outline, I don't know. Steve Brissette, can you shut your mic off? Thank you. If if you're comfortable with outlining what the bank impact is at this time, I think you can, right, we can approve it with that 6 feet of bank impact. The bank impact is dependent on, how much bank they have on site. You're allowed, 10%, or, I don't have it in front of me, whatever the feet amount is, whatever is less, I think it's 50 feet, whatever is less, and provided it's not a significant impact. So they'd be under that threshold here, if it's at 6 feet, but I guess if, we say there's 6 feet of bank impact associated with brush removal for the installation of a temporary dock, and any changes to that, they'd have to come back. So if they need to put something into anchor, they could set something back off the bank to anchor. We could say it that way. If they set something off back, they could provide a detail afterwards. And then also, what are the footings? You could say, 4 footings, 1 foot of, square foot impact per footing. You could give them, like 4 square feet of land underwater impact for the footings. I don't know. I just don't know. So that's, that could be an option, I guess, so.
I'm just looking for a way to give them, without engineering the project, give them options to move forward, because obviously they'd like to break ground sooner rather than later. I myself don't have an issue with the pole issue, because if they're willing to take the risk, they'll need to come back in front of us, and if the pole creates an obstacle that we can't move forward with the project, then that's their own peril. That's not ours. That's my own opinion. So I prefer, if the applicant is looking to move forward with a project, to vote on whether or not what we're comfortable with allowing for, and allowing them to move forward, and any changes, that's up to them. That's on them to bring it back to us at their own peril.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's at their own peril, but it's also at the lake's peril. I mean, if they go in there and start excavating and come to a point where they can't get the pole moved, for a year and a half, or whatever, we have to deal with that. I'd like to see it stepped, if anything. If we're going to approve this project, the first thing they would be required to do would be come back with, this temporary dock stuff. I mean, these docks are all readily available. My son bought a place this spring, and he had, within 3 weeks, he had an aluminum dock in front of his place. They're available. They're available to width, to length. There are specs on what the town allows. I don't know why that, becomes a temporary. I don't know what the word temporary means. Does temporary mean a seasonal, or does temporary mean you're going to have a plan for some bigger, better, wider dock later on? I don't know. So we approve this with contingencies, or we approve this? How do you guys want to proceed?
I feel that a continuation is operable. David Barnacle.
Stephen, how do you feel we should go?
Honestly, I could go either way, but
Steve Alderman, what do you think?
Well, I guess my first question would be, when do you guys want to get started? And is this, you got 2 engineers working on this project, and they know about these temporary docks and how they are attached. Somebody don't know. We talked about it at our site visit, how it's going to be attached. So, I just assume you guys do your work and come up with a plan, and
Hey, Steve, you're bouncing in and out a little bit tonight. Is there?
Steve, I'll try to get his phone.
Go ahead, Steve.
I was just going to say, I haven't heard when they want to get started on this project. And, I mean, the dock issue is a very small issue, but it's also an issue that they were told at the site visit that was a question we were going to have, is tell us about the dock and how it's going to be attached or not attached to the bank. And, you know, they give us a reason as to why this is a big rush, and you need to know, you know, you need to move forward immediately, or that you can figure out this dock and tell us, because we have to give a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, and it seems silly to say, well, we don't know what they're going to do, they didn't tell us, but we're going to give them carte blanche to do X amount of impact. I don't know. I'd want to hear from the engineer, Steve and Mr. Baum.
What I can add to that is when we talk about a temporary dock, we're talking about a seasonal put in and take out type dock. On the plan, we have specified that it be no longer than 25 feet, which obviously we know is the town regulation with the harbor masters, and that it'd be 4 feet wide. The exact dock, the exact configuration, the exact foot, roll in, weights on the feet, I don't know that answer. I did ask of the clients to do a little research on the dock, you know, to see what they were interested in, and that's the best I can offer for that. As far as the pole removal, I think down the road, if that becomes an impossible task to accomplish, we'd be looking at mirroring the house or something, putting the garage on the other side. As far as impacting it closer to the lake and that kind of a thing, I don't foresee that being the possibility or the option. We have it now that the garage is on the north side to give us better southern exposure on the living area of the house. It wouldn't be the end of the world if we had to flip it and go the other way. And that's what I could offer on the two issues that seem to be hanging us up.
All right, we've been through it. Becky, could you see if we have anybody in the audience who would like to speak to this?
So this is Brian Sampson too. I'm the applicant. I don't know whether I'm supposed to say anything or not, but since this certainly affects me, is there an option to add the dock after the fact? In other words, just eliminate it from this plan for now. I hope that you can see that we tried our best to put a lot of detail into this and a lot of time and a lot of money into getting it right and making sure it was right the first time. I apologize that the information for the dock did not come through clearly to me, and I will take blame for that. And that doesn't change obviously doesn't change any of the rules or regulations for it. But we are looking to get into this area as soon as possible to get our 4-year-old daughter, who turns 5 soon, into the school system, and so we kind of want to break ground as soon as possible. And as far as the pole is concerned, we are literally on the phone daily with the engineers and trying to escalate it up through their management to get this moving. National Grid is National Grid. They're bigger than me, so I'm doing the best I can there. But if there's an option, we'd say, okay, we can approve it without the dock, if that's the main hang-up, and if I have the opportunity to address it later on, I'd be happy to do that.
So this is Becky. I think it's definitely an option to take that off of the permitting right now. You would just have to come back afterwards. We would need to get the revised plan reflecting that, and then just, figure out where you're going to end the walkway over there. But that's definitely an option if you wanted to remove it from the project and they submit a revised plan without the dock on it. That would be an option you could do.
All right.
I'd like a motion to close the public hearing.
Well, we gotta go to the public first.
So moved. Public. Oh, we haven't heard from the public.
I thought we did. Didn't?
No, that was the owner.
Oh, okay. Did anyone go over and check this?
Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 51A Seneca Lane Notice of Intent for a construction of a new single-family home?
We're dead. One more person and then it's your death.
Is there anyone on the line that would like to speak to the 51A Seneca Lane?
No.
There's no one on the line that wants to speak for this project.
Right? Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Steve Halderman.
Steve Halderman, seconded.
Eric Gaspar, second.
Any discussion?
I just want to make one real quick comment to Mr. Sampson. You guys did do a very nice job.
Close the public hearing, and I'd rather you just address the board.
Okay. To the board.
We haven't had a vote on it yet.
I know.
We haven't closed the public hearing yet.
We voted to have discussion amongst the members of the board on closing the public hearing.
Okay.
Go ahead, Steve. I didn't mean to truncate what you were going to say.
I was just going to say that it's a good idea, but this is a comment about the plan, not the closing of the hearing. But I'll just say, and if I'm out of order, so be it.
Go ahead.
It'll be the first time. It is a really good plan that they put forward. They got and if they take that dock off of there, it's, as we well know, people come all the time. They've got a place and they decide they want a dock, and they come into the harbor master and request a dock, and it comes through us. So that's perfectly a really good solution, is to take it off and come back later with it. It's not a big deal.
All right. On that note, any further discussion on closing the public hearing? Oh, okay. All in favor of closing the public hearing? Steve Halderman, how do you vote?
Favor, Steve Halderman.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Stephen Chidester?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle?
David Barnacle not in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor. Okay, carries 4-1. Do I have a motion?
I have a motion that we approve. Let me get all the details here, because I'm used to David doing all this stuff, but he's not in favor. So.
Yeah, he's
we are.
Page 1098.
I scroll 1098. Is that what it is?
Yes.
All right. Yes. Motion. I move to approve DP file 300-1098 with the removal of the dock as a condition, and the appropriate agent's notes regarding our concerns with the pole relocation.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second that. Steve Halderman. Nicely done, Eric.
Discussion? Other than telling us nicely done, any discussion?
Becky's got her hand.
Just want to add, you guys did mention about the revision to the plan to keep the 24-inch oak. Did you want to add that as part of your approval?
Please. With the appropriate 15-foot buffer around it.
One other project, when we had an arborist weigh in, they also did say that no more than 6 inches of material to be placed on top of that root zone too. So that was another thing we did on Cedar Lake with a project, so if you want me to add that.
Sounds good.
Please do.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to have? Yeah. Okay. Seeing no more discussion, let's have a vote. Stephen Chidester, how do you vote?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David Barnacle, how do you vote?
Eric, I couldn't do it because I was voting no. David Barnacle, no.
Okay,
Eric, you gave me a moment to shine, David. Thank you. Eric Gaspar in favor.
Steve Haldeman, how do you vote?
Steve Haldeman in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, we are now.
Thank you.
Yeah. We are well to 92 Paradise Lane. Is that what we're on next, Beck?
Correct.
Let me just check here. At 92 Paradise Lane, we have an RDA, landscape improvements. Lisa and Steve Dalbert. Thibault?
Yeah, Mike Thibault. Here.
Yeah, Thibault, I'm sorry. Becky, why don't you start off?
Okay, I'm gonna pull up the plan here, so. All right, what you see in front of you is the plan for this project. This is a landscape approval project, landscape improvement project. All work is within an existing developed lakefront lot. What they're planning on doing, if you start at the beginning where the top of the plan where Paradise Lane is, they are installing a concrete block retaining wall in the outer 100-foot buffer zone. They also are doing a boulder wall to come to the rear of the property. I did check with the representative, and there's no tree removal associated with that. And as you come around front, they're looking at doing a pervious walkway to the shoreline and a pervious patio there. There's no tree removal proposed along the shoreline, and they do have a very nice naturally vegetated shoreline there. They're not proposing any modifications to that. Like I said, all work is within an existing developed yard. It is a lawn at the time. Don't see any concerns with the inclusion of these small pervious walkways and patios near the shore here and the stepping stones. For this is a RDA. I would recommend approving the project. The determination would be a negative number 3 with conditions and a positive number 5. With this project, I would just have our standard conditions for erosion and sedimentation control during work. They do show a straw wattle and silt fence along the shoreline there for the duration of the work.
Sure. But guess you don't need me. Great job.
We need you, Mike.
All right, Mike, do you want to say anything? Or do you want to let it go at that? I mean,
you did a great job. Yeah, I don't know how much, I don't know what I would add. Pretty much that covered it, but, yeah, I mean.
Any comments from the board?
I have one question for Becky. You agreed with the silt fence along the waterfront area?
Well, I think it would be, it is pretty rocky along the shoreline, so I think it would be set back from that and the vegetation. So it looks like it's right up against the lake shore, but it probably would be set back. What do you think, Mike, 5-10 feet?
Yeah.
In that area?
Yeah, I mean, I would want to avoid all the vegetation, so I actually, it would be, in a little bit to avoid that, and the rocks as well. So at the limit of the work.
I have a concern with disturbing that soil area that has not been disturbed for a significant period of time by putting in a silt fence and then tearing the silt fence out so that you have bare soil, where probably is not warranted. A straw wattle will do the same basic thing, it just doesn't have the depth.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mike, do you plan on needing equipment to be going back there a lot that might dig up that area, or?
I mean, it wouldn't really disturb the lawn area. I would, because we're talking about permeable paving. You do have to, you're digging a significant depth to give you the permeability underneath it. So, equipment would be needed for that. But certainly a straw wattle, I think, would suffice, and it really could be pushed really just to the edge of the work area,
and not impact any of that vegetation. 'Cause, no, I wouldn't want to dig into that either. I agree. That would just do more damage than it would do good. So, you know, straw wattle, right at the edge of the work area would do.
So Mike, even if you came up against a problem, you could add a second layer of the straw wattles, just alternating them.
Right.
And it probably would do a heck of a lot better job than the silt fence would.
Yep. Yeah, I think, you know, I think it would work. And I'm not, this isn't going to be exposed for any length of time. I mean, honestly, within the same day, I would probably excavate it and then fill it with, essentially, crushed stone is your base, it's your permeable base. And, you know, once that's installed, that's going to be more of a collection point than anything. I don't think the erosion issue is, so, yeah. I think with the straw wattles, I agree, will do the job. So if the board was good with that, I would very much think that would do the job and not hurt current vegetation.
All right. That being said, any other comments from any of the other board members? Seeing none, Becky, you want to see if anybody in the audience would like to speak to this? Or Aaron? Aaron,
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 92 Paradise Lane RDA for landscape improvements? Anyone on the public line for the 92 Paradise Lane RDA? No.
There's no one on the public line.
Hearing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Move, Mr. Chairman. David Barnacle.
David Barnacle, and seconded by?
Steve Halderman.
Steve Halderman. All right, Steve. Any discussion? All in favor? Steve Chidester?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Steve Halderman?
Steve Halderman in favor.
David Barnacle?
David Barnacle in favor.
Eric Gaspar?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor. Do I have a motion to approve the project?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve 92 Paradise Lane RDA for landscaping improvements with modifications indicated to the agent, including a modification relative to the removal of the silt fence requirement.
Mm-hmm. Do I have a second?
Steve Halderman, second.
Eric Gaspar, second.
All right. Steve Halderman.
Hey, Eric, was that okay?
Making his move late in the game. On that, any discussion? All right, all in favor? Steve Halderman?
Steve Halderman in favor.
Stephen Chidester?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric Gaspar?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
David Barnacle?
David Barnacle in favor.
Ned Goodwin in favor. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike.
All right, we are now on to 126 Arnold Road. Notice of intent, clear cut wooded lot to convert to agriculture. DEP file number 300-1094. Becky, what do you say?
All right, so I'm going to pull up the original plan on here. So this is the original plan that was submitted. We did go out and do a site visit last week with the property owner. What we're looking at for jurisdiction here, we do have, it's a buffer zone project. And we also do have a riverfront on the property site. So DEP did provide the file number and comments. I did reach out to DEP because they did request that the applicant submit an alternative analysis for riverfront impacts. with new agricultural under the WPA, the 200-foot riverfront is reduced to a 100-foot riverfront. So they're not working within that. So I did speak to the agent at DEP, and they just weren't clear that there was no work proposed within that, and it was agriculture. So there's no alternative analysis that's required for work outside the 100-foot riparian, because this is an agricultural project, provided there's agricultural uses in that area. So after our site visit, we did have a couple things that we noted on site. To the bottom of this plan, which is the south, there was what appeared to be a potential jurisdictional area that was feeding the perennial stream. We did see some areas that had some indicators of hydrology on the site. And we did discuss while we were out there with the property owner. He did have some areas that he wanted to work in, but that were just areas that would be some limited tree removal versus the actual extent of the agricultural limit of work. So after the site visit, I did reach out to the consultant that performed the wetland delineation out here. I did inform her of the things that we noted on site, and I also noted that the delineation was done in December of last year. So due to time of year, I did ask that she go back out there. She did speak to the property owner, and she was able to go back out there and take a look at that. I did receive a revised report from her yesterday with her findings and BVW sheets, which the BVW data sheets, which I asked for. So I did quickly look at those. The areas of the middle of the site that we had some question about, I do agree with her, they're non-jurisdictional. They did submit a revised plan today. The report and the plan have not been provided to the board since it was past our deadline for revised materials. But I did look at that. And I can put that up here if you want to take a look at it too. So what you're looking at here was the original plan, and I can put the other one. Do you want me to put the other one up too?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's take a look at it.
Okay. It's not colored or anything at this time.
Told me it wasn't going to be colored.
So just to quickly go over it. So on the north part of the property, we did note there was additional resource area just off-site that we did want to see, and I'm actually going to zoom in a little bit more as I kind of move through, and I can give you that information so you can see that a little bit better. We did note there was an intermittent stream to the north of the property. We did ask that be looked at. They did go back out there. I think that they didn't flag it because it's off the property, but they did note that on here and put the buffer zones on here so you can look at those. So that was one of the things that we had looked at there. They did include on the plan the selected limit of clearing area. I would ask if there's a narrative of what that definition is. And then scrolling down, she did include what she's calling, in her report, she said that, obviously there's flow coming out of there, and flagged it. It's noted as a drainage swale on here. I think that it should be noted as a resource area with a buffer zone put off of it. You can see that they are showing, they revised the limit of work to about, it's 25 feet off the stone wall here, but I would like to see the buffer zones projected off that. After the site visit, I did a little research about the property to the south because the property owner noted that there was a septic replacement there. We didn't have anything in our records in conservation for that, but I did find the plan in Board of Health. It noted a swale there, and it also noted the stream to the south of the property and noted it as an intermittent stream. So that was definitely a red flag there. Never was filed with conservation. It was a perennial stream, but that swale was existing at that time. So I would just recommend that that's noted as, a resource area, and we project those buffer zones off there. So, appreciate they did turn that around pretty quickly to get that back in after our site visit. Couple of notes, things that I outlined in the detailed agenda. I would recommend, we did talk about, setting off a little bit more of some buffer zone protection to resource areas. And also looking at, I definitely recommend looking at where the agricultural uses are, a little bit more of a definition of what's going to be hayfield versus the vineyard, Christmas trees, just to get a better idea of what the planned agricultural uses are here. And just to make sure too, especially in the riverfront area, that if you do consider, giving that 100-foot riparian, that within the 100 to 200-foot riparian area, that those are agricultural uses that are proposed there. I would definitely recommend anywhere where we are close to resource area, especially in the northern part of the plan, 25 feet, off of a resource area isn't much when you're standing there looking at it. We know that area kind of feeds down into that wetland. If, this is a big site, and, when we look at projects, usually, we look at, all right, well, if we have a single family house and a septic and, all the things you kind of need to go along with a single family house, where can we site those? What are the alternatives to reduce, buffer zone impact? All right, well, why can't your septic go here or not? We're not really looking at completely the big picture of what all the uses are here, and it is a big site, so if there can be some additional buffer zone protection, that's going to protect the wetland from stormwater impacts, runoff that could be associated with any agricultural uses. I think that would be beneficial here. So I think I covered most of those. As far as the actual construction of the project, after the commission approves something, definitely, because this is a big area to be cleared, I would recommend that there's a phased plan developed for how that work is going to occur. So we're not looking at having 5 acres open at once, that really could be subject to erosion. So I think that would be really useful in how that's done to make sure we have that resource area protection. A straw wattle and a silt fence around a big clearing like this, typically we find isn't usually enough. So I think that we could have a phased plan that could be developed to make sure we don't have any unintended resource area impacts during work. Also, just for the property owner's knowledge, according to the EPA, if you're going to have an acre or more open at once, you do have to have a stormwater pollution protection plan. So that would be something that I would recommend as a condition of the project when we get to that point. At this time, since we received that information back, I would recommend continuing the public hearing. The commission can have a better look at this information that's submitted and give the applicant the opportunity to hear your comments at this time. If there's any other inclusions you think might be necessary for this project, to work on that, to come back at the next meeting. And that's all.
All right. Anybody in the board comments?
Two comments come to rise fairly quickly. This is David Barnacle. First one is I certainly agree with Becky about the phased-in part of the project. You really can't have more than 1 acre exposed at any one time without having some true activity take place within it. Second one is, because of the various nature of the various waterways, would you suggest, Becky, on site that there be some bollards in the form of large rocks in order to constantly remind people exactly where these wetland boundaries are? Because otherwise, with at least 3 different proposals for agricultural activities on the site, you could have some serious incursions right into not only the 50-foot, but the 25-foot area.
Yeah, you could definitely consider, having something like that if they're going to be doing some type of grading work out there. I'm sure they're going to come across some rocks. You could have that at the limit of work, have something spaced out, so that way, down the road there isn't any, it's a visual reminder of where that limit of work is.
Stephen, any comments?
Yeah, I guess my main comment is this, the select limited clearing area. I would prefer to actually have, specific trees identified that they want to remove, instead of giving this giant area and say, yeah, just, you can take whatever you want out of that.
Select, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I would like it either defined or say, no clearing to the 100-foot.
Eric?
Well, did Matt not want to say anything about we didn't ask the applicant?
I never worry about Matt. I'll get him in here. I just,
I'd be interested to hear Matt's comments. I don't have anything
they have to say, so that he, it gives him better preparation. So.
Okay. Well, I won't have him prepare anything for me. I just like to listen.
Are you not going to say anything? Mr. Haldeman?
Yeah, the fact that they're going to have to put together a SWIP on this is something that we should be very interested in, especially regarding erosion control. And, there's situations where you've got so much soil open up that one erosion control barrier at the bottom of or at the edge of the work oftentimes is not enough, and you could have several rows on a hillside. And I think whoever put the SWIP together will know that that is a possibility to protect from erosion. And I agree with other comments that people have made in terms of being as protective as we can. So that's my only comment.
Well, from my point of view, it's an old field. It's a very old field, but you can see where the field has been worked and where the boundaries are of what they consider to be arable land are. I mean, it's very clear. If you walk down if we leave Matt's house and we walk down across the road and we stay on the right-hand side, we go down by that gully that is like an intermittent stream, or he says it's a culvert, and then beyond that there's the river going down. That is so rock infested from being, from rock being thrown from the field into that area, and also from the years of that water running down there, that's just not even usable there. And then you get down to the bottom and cuts across where Matt's property is, and it goes across. It doesn't go near the wetland, so we're protected there. And as we start back up the other side, that's the only area that is really, as far as what I can see, it's very vague and very. That's where the quote intermittent stream is. It's, that area probably is not going to be a loss if we stay out of those rock piles, or to do whatever he wants to do. I mean, I'm not speaking for him, obviously, but what I'm saying is that I think it seems to me we can put together a pretty simple plan to protect that wetland and to allow him to use the land, because I think the land is fairly flat, sloping towards the wetland, but not going near it on his property. So that's kind of those are my thoughts on it. Matt, you want to get in here and
a little bit. That's as quiet as I've been for the longest time. I can remember recent past anyway. So Becky, semantics on the swale. I probably polluted poor Fred's mind on that. I told him to put drainage swale because I wasn't really honestly sure of the semantics. So semantics aside, Mary Ann couldn't flag it. She identified it. We taped it off. And rather than try to tape off and show the buffer, Fred and I agreed that just taking a fixed point of the stone wall, my property line, and going 25 feet off of that was 25 feet. Well, it's minimum of 30, but that swale moves away from the stone wall as you go down towards the perennial stream. So it's 25 from the wall, it's 30, 35 from that swaling area, and increasing from west to east. So, with semantics aside, we tried to pick that up, and we tried to show it on this revised plan as well as we could. Steve, you made a great point about, and one that I was going to raise anyway on the, so now I'm moving from southerly boundary over to the east and the crosshatched area. That's all added. So for Dave Barnacle's benefit, we were able, when walking it, and I think this was kind of part of what Ed was getting at, is a pretty well-defined point right around where the 100-foot buffer line happens to be. It's coincidental. Well, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's the way the farmers work the fields, whatever, but it drops off. I'm not looking to cut trees in there. And so, Steve, I probably could have done a better job we rushed the revision, but I only want to go into the crosshatched area. And again, the first plan was 50 feet. I've now come back to about 100. So I think, Becky, that we're also trying to answer to your, can we get some more buffer in this resource areas, and that's what I think this plan starts to do. But I only want to go in there for diseased, dead, or downed trees, and that it may be that I don't go in there at all. But I don't want to cut live, healthy trees that are in the crosshatched area. And mainly, I'm going to be selfish here because I don't really need to Ed's point. There's plenty of land, and that land down there isn't valuable for us from an agricultural point of view. So maybe that answers your questions, and maybe when I come back, I'm going to do a better job of putting that note on the plan so that I'm on record saying I'm not going to actually cut trees in the crosshatch area at all. Then going just up to the north, where we did pick up some more buffer up here. I had 25 all the way around. What is that? Is that C? Is that Series C? I'm not getting the.
I'll zoom in.
Very good. There you go. Yeah. So we were along the 25-foot buffer. I brought this corner of the proposed limit of work directly over to the stone wall. Ed, I'd like to have that stone wall as my cutting point, and it's aesthetically pleasing. These are very nice stone walls around the southern and the northerly boundary of my property. I'd like to be able to cut up to those. That is going to, once that grass grows, I'm not planting in there. I'm using that from a hayfield perspective. So, I mean, if somebody really objected to a particular spot around Series C, I'm not saying I'm not all ears. I'd like to be able to cut the trees and manage this property right up to that 25-foot buffer because it's going to produce the best result for me from an agricultural perspective. Again, if there's some particular spot where there's a concern, I'm happy to listen. This is what I'd like to get approved from a maximum limit of work perspective, and I'm likely going to be more conservative almost across the board, except where it comes to the stone walls area. I'd like to cut up to those. Last thing I'll say, I'm happy to put monumentation around Series C, Dave. I don't think it's actually necessary from a protective standpoint because Janice and I aren't talking about going anywhere too soon. She continues to keep me around. I'm not sure why, but I'm planning on being the one doing the work here. I'm not going to go into that. It's not legal for me to do it. I wouldn't do it, but monumentation is fine. Happy to do that if we can find the right resources from the earth there. But these stone walls, you saw it, Ed, you were talking about down by the perennial stream where we've got the 100-foot riparian. Those stone walls are also, I mean, these would be part of my, what did you call it, Steve Halterman? SWIP? My stormwater is that short, we make words out of acronyms, SWIP or whatever it's called, but my stone walls on this property are actually going to be part of that. Obviously we're not looking forward to having a soil erosion event while we're open that even gets to the silt fencing. and obviously that would be a problem for me right off the bat. But there is another backstop here. Any resource, any area that's under a decent amount of grade stress is backed up by a stone wall. They're all in good shape. You saw them yourself. So I think that's probably all I needed to add. I got a little frightened, Becky, when I saw I had like 15 bullet points under my staff notes there, but I think we've addressed a lot of those. And I think Mary Ann did a fabulous job, honestly, of getting out there quickly and really sort of point blank addressing each of your areas of concern. So I feel like we're in pretty good shape, but I'll stop there, Ed.
Yeah, anybody else have any further? I got one more question for him. Anybody else have any questions for him?
The only thing I was going to ask, Matt, sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Oh, go ahead.
The only thing I was going to ask, you had made a comment on site that you were going to be putting this property in Chapter 61. Would you be amenable to us putting a condition in that if this property would ever come out of Chapter 61, that the 200-foot riparian would need to be restored back to its original state? I have no doubts that you would keep it in 61, but I think we need to put some protections in there in case it does come out of 61 for any reason.
I'm fine with it. I think instead of 61A being the trigger, I'd rather it be related to the use, Eric, just because 61A is a particular tax designation that I may or may not always be granted. The town every year either approves or denies your application. So I probably would say the proper trigger is not that designation as much as it is the use. Honestly, I think Becky would probably tell both of us that that's going to be the case anyway, that if you stop using this as agricultural, you don't get any of the right to farm benefits. But happy to agree to that, sure, because that's fine. Works.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I had, Ed. Steve.
Anybody else?
Sorry.
I was just going to say, Matt, and this is just a comment. You look when we were on the sidewalk and you saw those dead trees down there. You said, "Gee, that's ugly. It's not very aesthetic. I'm going to probably pull those out of there." Those of us on the Conservation Commission look at that and we say, "Wow, that's really nice." There's a lot of habitat there. Just to let you know, if you're the only one looking at it, and if you don't mind looking at dead trees, I just leave them. But fair enough. You do what you want on that. That's just my comment.
No, it's fair enough, and I don't even know how much is in there. I mean, I maybe even between now and I can take another pass through there, and maybe I can set. Maybe I don't have to even show that crosshatch area. I realize I probably have no sort of legal, I don't know if that's the right word, but legal right to go into the 100-foot riparian to do any of that. I said it out loud, but I probably shouldn't have, because I know I can't go in there and start doing anything. I may just be able to tell you guys by the time I get back here that that easterly boundary, that I can do away with that crosshatched area. And I think I was sort of, as I was walking, hearing your feedback, and I was sort of thinking out loud when I started talking this through, and I probably want to walk down there with Janice, and maybe we can get that out of there altogether, and just stick with what is essentially then going to be one boundary line, buffer line.
Yeah. Well, my comment was more tongue-in-cheek because magic words that you said were that you're not going to go in and cut any live trees. But I'm just saying you can just leave the dead ones in there as far as I'm concerned. But
you got it.
No
I'll
problem.
leave them all. I just don't want to kill any more.
You can impress Janice if you want. And you can impress Janice by saying those are not truly dead trees. Those are habitat trees and scientists call them snags.
All right, I'll work on it. I don't think she's going to be impressed, but I'll try.
Oh, okay.
You'd be surprised.
Ed, do you want to go to public comment?
No, let me just make my public comment
Okay.
first, Vic, and then go to that. A key to this, Matt, is going to be to protecting our wetlands is going to be the execution of your project. You have a lot of wood in there. In my opinion, your vision will be a beautiful field with some stone walls showing, and grape arbors in there, and it'll be fantastic. I'd love to go by it. And it will also do no damage to the wetlands below if you execute it correctly. How are you going to execute this?
Well, it's one step at a time in this process. So I agree, Becky sort of redirected my focus. My focus is on getting a plan of what I wanted the vision part of this, Ed, right?
Yeah.
Now, as we start thinking about getting a project that's ready for your approval, then I got to switch gears, right? And I've got to have a plan. There's issues when I think about the whole topic. I think about when I can grow grass physically. I don't grow grass, right? Mother Nature does, and depending on when you start the project, it's phasing. If you look up some basic. I'm going to get all the semantics and jargon wrong, but if you look up some of the stormwater best practices, it's sort of the Blitzkrieg approach where you can get in and get it stabilized, and faster the better. And that could be counter to phasing. But then I look at phasing. Maybe I think about phasing right over the top of that hill, so that because this property, as you guys saw, kind of redirects water in different directions. But once you get to the top of the hill, it's either over this way or over that way. So maybe that's where maybe that's the most effective phasing line. So I hear you. The last thing I want, the very last thing, that perennial stream, it originates on my property. The very last thing I want is a rain event that makes a mess, right? I'll avoid it. I don't know all that we'll do to make sure that doesn't happen, but I will avoid it at all costs.
There's equipment out there today that can go into that field and clean all of it out in a day.
Yeah, maybe Becky is willing to get on a phone call with me and talk about some of this.
I'm recommending it, but my point is that I've seen it done where you take a bulldozer and you pile you clear all the trees, and then you take all the stumps and you pile them into a big refuse pile down to the low end as usual, which would be down toward the wetland. So we're not going to let you do that. So I'm just telling you, we need an execution plan, and everything else is great to me. I'm willing to go.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I think it's one step at a time. I'm glad you like what we've done to try to hit on all the concerns that we've heard so far. Mary Ann did a great job. So now I got to move on to that, and I think they're in lockstep. What you guys want to see is what I need to do for the stormwater management, the protection plan. And that includes phasing. It includes stabilization as we go. So that's my next direction when we leave this call.
All right.
Start figuring out how to do it and to do it safely.
So Becky, you can see if Aaron wants to see if there's anybody over there.
Mr. Chair, before we do that, I would just like to provide some feedback.
Sure.
For myself.
Go for it.
Becky, can you go back to the north end the property and zoom out a little bit? Yeah, actually this area right there, I'd just like to point out, move over to show more of the cutting. Yeah, sorry, that's good. What I see here, what I would like to see is that we don't clear past the 50-foot buffer around that wetland. That's my personal preference. And if you look at that 50-foot, the wall itself, the amount of extra wall that you're exposing by cutting to the 25-foot, to me, you know, that looks like maybe 30 feet of wall, extra wall that you're getting, and I don't see necessarily the benefit in doing that. And I would like to have that wetland protected. Your limit of clearing is not much different than the 50. It's not like you're gaining a whole lot of extra space there. And I feel personally that I'd like to see that wetland protected out to the 50-foot. So I'm providing that feedback because I don't want you to be surprised the next time we get together. Thank you.
Well, better from my perspective as the applicant, I want an approvable plan. So, especially in there, if we want to plant on the west side of where you're pointing out as we speak, right? I don't dispute the wall. In fact, Steve, somebody robbed that wall, that's why it's not even shown on the plan. Somebody really took most of that wall out of there in the first however many feet that is 150, 200 feet of wall. They just robbed it like everybody used to do. So the only thing I'd say about that from an agricultural perspective, if I want to use what is nice upland right by the road there, it's those trees in that buffer that are going to provide shade, you know, the better part of back up towards that road. I don't know what those trees, I can't, you know, I'm not going to recite heights and types of trees that are in that area, but that's part of the objective there. So it wasn't just because I want to get closer to the wetlands. That's not it at all. Let me take another look and...
Wait a minute. Mr. Chairman, one more comment. I think Mr. Sosik should take a look at the best management practices for normal cutting practices, and it is online. The Department of ECR, I think it's under Department of Conservation and Recreation. But the best management procedures oftentimes talk about a 100-foot buffer area for which only selected cutting may be done within that 100-foot buffer area for wetland. So I would look at the BMPs, if I were you, just to make sure that you're above board with them as well as with us.
Yeah, I mean, the answer is not that, again, that I want to get into that buffer. It's just, we're not trying to make a building lot out of this or put up a commercial building. We're trying to return this to its old glory and make it into the field that it was, and try to get the most agricultural use out of this property. And so therein lies the objective. I'm not trying to over leverage the right to farm aspects of the project, but you know, that's why I'm doing this. Otherwise I'd put 5 houses on here and make money. Not the objective.
All right, I gotta cut this off. Matt, don't talk anymore. You guys, let's back it off. Anybody has a pertinent thing they want to tell Matt that, just so he's aware of everything? All right. So, Matt, you'd like a continuation, right?
Are we going public?
Great.
Public.
Go ahead, get public comments.
Good evening. Do we have anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 126 Arnold Road Notice of Intent? Good evening. Do we have anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 126 Arnold Road Notice of Intent?
No, I guess not. There's no one on the line?
No.
All right, thank you. So Matt has requested a continuation until the next meeting. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Barnacle?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Steve?
Steve Halterman in favor.
And Ed in favor. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you guys, and ladies, see you soon.
Yeah.
Take care, man.
122 Main Street, continued notice of intent, redevelopment of a gas station and convenience store. DEP, file number 300-1093. Becky?
Yep. All right, I'm just going to share my screen here. So this is a continuation for a project. Oh, that's not what I meant to show. Let me get there. All right. Continuation for a project that was on our meeting agenda 2 meetings ago. This is a gas station redevelopment. It's a land use with a high pollutant load. At the last public hearing, the commission requested additional information and asked the applicant representative to look at the inclusion of some stormwater management here. We didn't have any existing stormwater management or any proposed management on the site. Also, we did not have DEP file number and comments. We did receive those comments and file number right after the meeting, which I did include in the detailed agenda so you could look at them. I would ask that the applicant's representative do answer DEP's questions, provide a response to that. So, I mean, I do have my notes in the detailed agenda. I just want to say I do appreciate that stormwater BMPs were added to this project. Just for the commission's information, we did receive this information late last week. It was provided to the board to look at. The revised plan includes BMPs for roof runoff infiltration off the existing and proposed building. In addition to, on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see there is a small basin there to collect sheet flow off of the parking lot. As this is a land use with a high pollutant load, I would like to see some pre-treatment for contaminants that are going to come off here. I mean, it is, they are doubling the amount of pumps that are here, and we will be seeing, more use, which means more potential for contaminants. That was one of the comments from DEP as well, that if there was more than 1,000 vehicle trips per day generated, the applicant should address compliance with stormwater standard number 5. We did, at that meeting about a month ago, we did ask for these plans to go out and, look at them and look at the site and do a site visit. We didn't end up doing a site visit because we didn't have these until later last week. I do think it's still advisable to go out. I would recommend that the board request, some additional BMPs, catch basins with grease traps or something to look at how we can, manage and mitigate, the pollutants that are going to come off this site. So that's what I would recommend here. In addition, when we get there, we will need to see a revised O&M plan, so that way the property owner knows what those activities in perpetuity are that they're responsible for doing for making sure those BMPs are managed so that they're productive and useful on the site too. And that's it.
All right. Do we have an engineer that would like to speak for the site?
Yes, sir. John Connell, SciTech Engineering in Dartmouth. Steve Giosa had done the previous meeting. He was unable to attend tonight. The main question or the comment seems to be on the BMPs. Prior to the post last meeting, we were asked to take a look at the recharge. We did provide the recharge to would be to the north and to the east of the building to reduce some of that runoff that would ultimately flow southerly and get into that sediment sump that we proposed. We did look at something similar to what the agent had mentioned is a water quality inlet, and we try to strike a balance. In this case, it's a redevelopment project, and we didn't want to really tangle with that slope. Right now, it's a 2-to-1 to a 3-to-1 slope, and it's all vegetated and stabilized. If we were to install a water quality inlet, it would be in the vicinity of where we had proposed that sediment sump on the road shoulder there, or the pavement shoulder, and it would need an outfall.
Becky, can you?
Water quality. I'm sorry.
I'm asking Becky to enlarge the.
Yep, do you want the, right side of the plan to view, or?
Yeah.
Sure, yes, please. The south side where that sump is, ultimately, yes. We proposed that 1 foot deep sump there to catch the runoff that lands on the parking lot. We also have proposed a concrete curb to direct all the water that would now get through that sump, which may be escaping now down the slope because of a broken up berm that's out there. But that's what you want us to take a look at. You know, I know we looked at it, but we were reluctant to propose that because we'd have to clear a big area there basically down to the wetland, or either some type of riprap erosion control. The outfall would be located depending on the depth of the structure. Most of the time it's about, the invert's about 4 feet down from the rim. So that would break out either mid-slope or closer to the bottom of the slope. And that would involve, again, clearing that whole slope, which is 2 to 1 or 3 to 1. And we thought that as it sits now, where we put that sediment sump there, that would catch the sediment there, and then it would overtop and then naturally flow down that hill through the existing vegetation, which is already stabilized now. We didn't want to introduce potential erosion on that slope being so steep. That was the rationale behind it.
Okay. Any comments from board members? Mr. B, what do you say?
Oh, for one thing, I'm really disappointed at seeing that there's going to be twice as many gas pumps, and they're moving the gas pumps closer to resource area, because the resource area is at the bottom of that slope. But secondly, I noticed he's talking about water, but what about people not being the nicest type of human beings in the world and dropping off their paper goods or their refuse out of their car right there so that it's closest to the edge of the hill and going down, and there's no berm, there's nothing to prevent it from going down, and there's no real fencing there, or at least I haven't seen any on the plan. And I really disagree with putting a sump such that it's going to be spilling out onto that slope, because the slope has been stabilized over the years by a total lack of use. And perhaps that's really good for that slope.
Right.
Anyway, so much for David Barnacle.
Good points. Stephen?
Yeah, actually, I agree with what David just said. Those were similar to the comments I was going to make, so I'll leave it at that.
Eric?
Nothing further.
Steve?
Yeah, I think we all look at this and say it's too much on too small of a piece of property and a poorly sited place. And, the engineers are working hard to try to figure out how to make this work. And, it's just a shame. But I know, everybody's enlarging their service stations and all that. And these guys want to be, competitive and add a whole bunch. And it's just a shame of where it's located. And, I think they've gotten some good comments from us, and I think they need to go back to the drawing board and try to address some of these issues. But the bottom line is this is a really tough nut to crack, and they're going to have to work real hard to get it by us.
How does the board feel about Becky's, we should get a third-party engineer in there? I mean, Steve, you said they're working really hard. I I've been going by this site for a while now, and, you know, it's a mess. I'm sure they want to get it straightened around. The silt fences that were put up, and even the fences that they were put up are being blown over and knocked over. I mean, the wind has been something, but, you know, it's definitely a redevelopment. Well, it's more than I can handle as far as I think we need to get somebody in to help us figure out how we can protect that wetland and let them do what they want to do.
I agree. If you're asking us, I really go along with Becky's suggestions and really called for here because this is like I said, this is a tough one. And when I said they're working hard, you know, they're doing changes in the plan and trying, but that's a really hard situation they're in. So I agree for me to get a third party in here.
This is David Barnacle. I want the board to remember that when this project first got started, we discovered that the oil tanks had been put in without anybody knowing about it.
Right. Yeah.
You have to be very cautious, not accusing anybody of anything at the present time. We're just looking at past history. And remember what has been said about past history. You don't pay attention to it, baby, you got yourself a problem. We don't want a problem.
Ed, can I add a comment?
I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Sorry. You know, it's unfortunate that the tanks were already put in. I mean, they're only partially in, right? That's open. Because when you look at this and where the site slopes, you know, one, all of that water is being directed to that one area where they're proposing that sump, right? I mean, if you could break up the flow of the stormwater here and redirect, if you got to catch it in a catch basin or what do you have to do, and direct it to where those tanks are, I mean, that could be a good solution to really make some improvements. You know, we haven't looked at, you know, underground infiltration chambers at this site, and this would be a site, you know, I know the past engineer that was on said concerns about the soil or whatnot, you know, maybe that's a good area that, you know, you try to redirect most of it in that section and you have something underground and you move those tanks. You know, the tanks could be put somewhere else potentially. I don't know what challenges there are to that, but that's something the engineers could look at.
Becky, hang on a second. We're not the engineers here.
No, I know. I'm just, you know, looking at it and trying to give some ideas. You know, we're looking at it with the idea that those tanks have to be there. I don't know that they have to be there.
We have not said anything about the tanks.
Yeah.
The engineers have said about the tanks, not us.
You know, this is the classic, come to us before you start screwing around, putting in tanks without permission. And, you know, you got a lot of experts that can help you out and make it legal. I'm surprised DEP isn't calling up anyway.
Yeah, I just want to add, it's not the engineer's fault. The contractor, you know, jumped the gun. The engineers are trying to fix it, but I think, right, we got to look at what other options exist.
Yeah. That's exactly how we solve this. I don't have the expertise, and I don't see the applicant going down a road of good recovery right now. So we need to, I would recommend that we get somebody in here to assist, a third party to take a look at the site.
I agree.
Oh,
great idea.
We have a secondary option, and that is we can reject the plan as being unworkable. I'm sorry, I'm supposed to introduce myself first. To David Barnacle, one man's opinion.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, if we could do that too. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I can't vote for this plan in its present configuration.
But this, Steve Alderman, I think that if we follow Becky's recommendation and have a third-party engineer come in and see what is possible to salvage this. And if it isn't, then David, you are right on target. Is just say, this is unworkable and we can't do anything about it. But let's get the engineers, third party in there. And I think you also recommended a stormwater person, trying to find this. Anyway, whatever Becky recommended.
Well, I mean, I said you could require a third-party review of the stormwater by a PE to assist you.
Yeah, I would like that.
The applicant willing to do that?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to make the plan work. We've tried to add, again, the infiltration in that sump to reduce any erosion potential. We've tried to do that, and if the commission is unhappy with those, those solutions that, if that's, you want someone to take a look at it, we're certainly willing to hear some alternatives. We look at, again, we looked at the water quality inlet, and we felt that cutting that swath down that hill it wouldn't be advisable. So we thought, all the water does flow south right now. We reduced the pavement amount. That's where that water has always gone. We thought we had added, an improvement there. That's all.
All right, we need to move this along because we need more information. So, with the applicant's approval, we will look at third-party review. Anybody want to discuss that or comment on that?
No, Becky has to go out and get
Yeah, we'll go to
quotations.
Right, we'll have to put out requests for that. Do you want us to go to public comment now, or?
Yes.
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to 122 Main Street continued notice of intent? Anyone on the line for the 122 Main Street notice of intent? No.
Hearing none, I am asking the applicant for a continuation, and Becky will look for a third-party reviewer to take a look at these plans and see if we can come up with something that, or direction with you and your engineers that's more satisfactory.
And by the way, Mr. Chairman, this is David Barnacle. The continuation could be a minimum of 4 weeks.
What did you say?
Minimum of 4 weeks.
Yeah. Well, our next meeting's in 4 weeks, so that'll work.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah. So, John, you're all set with what we're saying here? I don't want,
Yeah, we want the site. We want to get the site to work. We're not trying to bring a site forth that the commission is unhappy with. So certainly, we agree to that, and we will work with the consultant. We're interested to see what he would say, and then certainly do our best to make the board happy with what we put forth. That's all.
All right.
David Barnacle, I make a motion that we approve of a continuation for 4 weeks. My next meeting.
Do I have a second on that?
And that includes establishing a third-party reviewer.
Right.
Right.
Okay, Eric, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. Steve Haldeman?
I'm in favor. Steve Haldeman.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David?
Barnacle in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Thanks, John. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, Becky, we are on to 57 Karen Road.
Oh,
Notice of intent, addition of a single-family home and associated site work.
So DEP issued a file number after we posted the agenda. It is file number 300-1097 for this. So I'll just share my screen and quickly go over this. All right, so this is a developed lot on Cedar Lake. We did perform a site visit out here last week. We met the property owner and the project engineer. Looking at a couple different things on here. We have a house addition on the existing home and some landscape revisions improvements. They're looking at, there are a lot of different concrete walkways out here, some existing paved driveway areas, and some, you know, concrete drainage swales that are being looked at to be removed off the property. They are looking to do some new steps and fieldstone patios, which will be pervious. Oh, all right. Landscape improvements here. So we did perform that site visit out there. When we were out there, we did note those concrete swales, which the engineer did send a revised plan in, which I can show afterwards, that just notes that they'll remove those as part of the project. The house addition does include drip strips along that to pick up the roof runoff, and the existing garage on the site will be removed. So for this project, it's a buffer zone project. There's no impacts to bank or the bordering land under water. This is a notice of intent. I would recommend approval of the project. I don't see any concerns with it. The property owner was very interested in making improvements on the site that are more, you know, native type things, retention of trees, the addition of vegetation. I think this will be a good improvement to the site. They are mitigating roof runoff with the infiltration and the removal of the impervious areas on the site. So I would recommend approval of this project, and since DEP issued that file number in time, you can do that here. That's all.
That's it. Is Lenny here?
Yes, I'd also like to add that in the process of getting the DEP file number, DEP had no comments relative to the proposed plan or no changes to be made to the proposed plan. I think what is being done here is a definite advantage to the site in question because of all the area for the driveway being removed, which is almost 838 square feet. The sidewalks, which are concrete, will be removed and placed with fieldstone, and that the swales on the property will be removed. And I think I recommend that it be approved. Thank you.
All right. Any comments from members of the board? None. David, what's the matter?
Project.
Went straight.
Steve?
I agree with Becky. I think this is, and Lenny, this is a great project. Jennifer did a super job walking us around and impressing me anyway with her environmental protection attitude. So I'm all for this project as it's planned.
Stephen, you're all set?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a quick comment that I think I said this on site. I wish all of our applicants were like this on the lake. This was great. This is a great project, so appreciate it.
Are we sure that those snakes we saw weren't an endangered species?
That was a snail dog.
So I just wanted to pull up, sorry, I just wanted to pull up, this is the revised plan. The only change is that he notes the two swales to come out, but I did want to present it to you. Okay?
Good. Yeah, that was a good test.
If anybody in the audience would like to speak to this?
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the notice of intent for 57 Karen Road? Anyone on the public line for the 57 Karen Road project? No.
There's no one on the line.
Hearing none, I'd like a motion to close the public hearing.
Moved. David Barnett.
Okay. David. Any discussion?
Well, we should indicate to the Casabons that it's not often that somebody brings in a project like this, gets approval like this, and is done in 5 minutes. Congratulations.
Tell them that. I don't want to jinx them.
Thank you. We were anticipating much more.
Problem.
Thank you.
Let's keep it moving. That's the best way to get it done.
Hey.
All in favor? Closing the public hearing, Steve?
Steve Haldeman in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David?
David Barnacle in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Do I have a motion to accept the plan?
I would like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, David Barnacle for 57 Karen Road, addition to a single-family house and landscape improvements as indicated on the file and with the comments relative to the agent, which includes the removal of the cement swales.
Do I have a second?
Eric Gaspar, second. And you're much more eloquent, David, than I am.
I don't know who I got, but, it doesn't matter. So, any discussion?
On the record somewhere.
All in favor? Steve?
Steve Haldeman in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
David?
You think about this. David Barnacle in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Thank you very much. Good luck, guys. Welcome to Sturbridge.
Take care. Tell your friends we're not that scary.
We're on to 20 Cedar Lake Drive. Continued notice of intent, raise and rebuild of a single-family home and shoreline wall restoration. All right.
Yeah.
Hi, Brian. Sarah, how you guys doing?
Good.
Good.
All right, I can give a quick summary if you want since the last meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so last meeting, the board did provide comments to the applicants, some things to look at for revisions, looking at removing structures out of the 25-foot buffer zone, minimizing within the 50, some suggestions to the shed the rebuilding of the shed on the property, and then also we discussed the shoreline wall on the property too. We also have a DEP file number now, which was issued with DEP file comments, which were down here and provided to the board to look at. So I've gone through, I have the plan, I have some images that the applicants put together that I'll put up and I'll let them go over in a little more detail. But just for my overview of this, I think the applicants did a really good job taking your comments. We did talk after the meeting, had a couple different times that we looked at things to work to, make this challenging site work for them and meet the board's concerns. So what you're seeing here on this plan, we have the red line, 25-foot buffer. Purple is the structure. You can see they've changed the footprint of the new structure versus with what they were looking at before. They've moved that structure out of the 25-foot. It did shift a little bit within the 50-foot. I did ask the engineer. It was a small increase, I think a little over 100 square feet of increase within the 50-foot area. And then as far as stormwater infiltration off there was one structure proposed before to pull some of the roof runoff off of the garage. They did incorporate another structure for roof runoff shown over here. And then also as far as the shed structure, they did pull that back off the shoreline another 4 feet or so, and that will be put on pilings that is within bordering land subject to flooding, you know, putting out in the pilings, and since there's a structure already there, I wouldn't see that as an impact for that resource area. As far as the shoreline wall, they really did take the comments and work with a landscape professional to really look at how we can do something more of a natural approach here, you know, versus like a stone revetment. In some of the areas, and I'll go to those images in a moment here, but they really looked at doing more of a natural wall, which would have these coir logs and plantings all around the inside of the cove here, which doesn't get as much wave action. They are going to continue with that around to the front, but I mean that gets a little more wave action, so they're asking to do on the bottom part of that like a 2-foot kind of dry laid stone wall in there, and then on top of that we'll have some plantings and a coir mat on top. So I'll go to those images. I think that those improvements to the shoreline wall, I really appreciate them. I think those are great. DEP's comments did include, you know, Chapter 91 potential requirements, and also looking at bank impact and the need for a wildlife habitat assessment. I think that this approach to the wall, you know, is a benefit for wildlife habitat where we would have lacked some of that in some of these areas. So I don't see it's necessary to have to move forward with the wildlife habitat assessment. I think this is the best solution and in the best of that interest for wildlife habitat. In addition, this approach also I wouldn't anticipate having any impact on bordering land subject to flooding, as it will allow, as it's going to be set back a little bit, more capacity for flooding in that area. So I'll go to those images in a moment here, but I would just say that I think that, you know, this is a really challenging site and they've really looked to work to make these revisions. I think that, you know, they would require a waiver for the new structures within 50 feet, but I think that based off of what they're providing, they would meet or exceed your 2-to-1 mitigation requirement to receive that waiver. So I mean, I would recommend approval for this project. You know, there's a few things, you know, obviously we'd have our standard conditions, you know, some of the special conditions, you know, obviously where the decks are proposed. We usually look at, you know, obviously having some gaps to allow like runoff to infiltrate below. I would highly recommend that underneath the decks, there's some type of like a pea stone base there, you know, whatever the specs are you're looking for. I don't know exactly, you know, maybe at least 4 inches to allow for that water to kind of, you know, be able to absorb in that area and eventually infiltrate. The toe of the slope for the shoreline wall, that's important. So we're not going to have a land underwater impact. That the toe of the new slope has to be the same as what the toe of the old slope was. So I recommend that that's put in there. And I would ask, you know, for these walls before, we've done, you know, looking at having a profile sketch for that shoreline work. You know, I would ask that we can add that as a condition that that's submitted. The landscape professional that's working with the applicants has done that for other projects, and they could add that in. I would ask for that before they start that work, just so we can ensure that there's no change there, no impact to land underwater, and then there's no change that's going to impact, like the amount of fill coming out, you know, amount going in has to be the same. So there's no net change there that could affect that bordering land subject to flooding too. Also, I think it would be important to add, and we've done for other type of plantings like this, that, you know, a qualified landscape contractor, you know, monitors that shoreline work to make sure that it's successful with the wall and the plantings. Typically what we'd look for, or you've asked for before, is maybe twice a year during the growing season for 2 years. And, you know, we usually ask for landscape plantings survival rate of about 75% after 2 growing seasons. And we usually just ask for reports to come in, you know, documenting how it's looking out there or anything they've had to do, replanting or modifications, you know, fix things like that. So I would just recommend that that's added on here. But I will add this, you know, I know you've seen this, but this really, you know, I skipped one, went a little fast. This shows what the existing conditions look like and what they're proposing. You can see, there's, the front here, we've got a lot of stone, and what they're looking at is they would still have the lower part stone, but on top of that, they have these coir logs and then plantings on top of that. So we're really creating like a natural embankment here. And he's also proposing some different plantings that are listed on here, some trees and some shrubs as well. And this is the other side. So you can see that most of this, after you come around the bend there, will be the coir log with the plantings. We also have some shrubs, a tree, and then he shows too that the boat shed is moved further back. And he also has indicated that he'd have a rain barrel on that for roof runoff. It's a pretty small structure. I think that's all I have, so.
All right, gentlemen?
Yeah. I'd like to add a couple things quickly here, and then I'll turn it over to the landscaper. But what it is the building itself originally on Lot 20 actually took an area of a 33.6% coverage on the lot. And what the client has done is he's purchased Lot 18, which is the lot northerly of the Lot 20, and there was a house on that lot at that time which we had a 16.6% coverage. That house will not be built. Then this one here, we moved the house back from the water and moved it back from the most westerly line from the street, and we're now coming up with a 23.1% coverage, which is less than it would be with the houses that were on there previously. So the coverage itself is becoming less. That's number one. Number two, they alluded to the fact that we needed a Chapter 91 for the existing dock. The client said that the existing dock will not be part of the thing, so you can put that as a provision that the existing dock to be removed. The other thing is we added an extra leaching pit on the northerly side of the house for drainage, and that's quickly what we've come up with. And I don't know, I would say maybe Mike from Landscape Evolution could discuss the planting and everything if you have questions. Thank you. Hello?
Hello, Mike?
I don't think Mike's on with us. I don't think
He's not here with you?
I don't know if we need
came here tonight. Okay, if you don't need him, everything is self-explanatory. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer.
Going to the board, does anybody have any questions on this project?
I have two.
Okay, David, shoot.
David Barnacle. The first one is coir log. Describe it, please.
A coir log?
Yeah. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, I could define it for you, but it's I think it's a coconut fabric type thing that goes on that holds that. Yeah, I've never used it myself, but I've seen it in, online. I've searched it because that's what Landscape Evolution's brought to us. So that most people use coir log.
Because we're New Englanders, sometimes we get confused with some of the pronunciations. In New York State, there's a thing that they call a coring log. And what that is a bunch of rocks that are thrown inside of chicken wire fencing. I just wanted to make sure that that's not what this was.
No, it's C-O-I-R.
This is not. No.
Yeah.
The second question is specifically for you, Brian.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about the building that is outside of your building, which you wanted to make into an office. And it had a sink in it.
And a shower and a toilet.
And where do those drain to? I forgot to ask that question a couple of weeks ago.
I searched, David. I searched to try to find out where it went to. There is a grinder right next to it, but it doesn't go to the grinder. And the sink and the toilet haven't been used in, it looks like 15 years at least. But I think there was a dry well next to our house that it might have gone to that is since
I have no idea, but I'll say this, it's going to need to be fixed before we're going to reconnect it.
Oh. Yeah, we went to that house for a site visit. I'm going to guess it was
20 years ago.
20 years ago, and that was that shed looked just about the same as it does now. I mean, you know, it had a lot of stuff in there, you know. But I think maybe kids went out there and stayed and stuff like that. But I don't think.
What I wanted to suggest is that, Brian, you can take, you can make some red dye and mix it with a glass of water and pour it down the sink. And you and your bride run right out to the water and see if, in fact, it is draining into the water. And if it is, we got to make a change real quick.
It isn't, because I did do that. And I opened up the grinder, and we looked outside, and it didn't go to either one, because you can see the pipe. The pipe goes towards our house. So, because it's on 18, it goes to 20 somewhere, but I don't know where. So.
Hey, I'm done.
Let's go on from that part of the conversation. I don't know. What do we need to know? Anything, Stephen? You got any questions?
Yeah, I just have one question. First, I want to say thank you very much for all the work you put into, you know, try to address our concerns. I appreciate that. My single question, are there any mature trees that are additional ones that are going to be removed based on this change in plan, the change in the building?
Yeah, so Stephen, the original one was, there was that big one that was, dead in the middle, and that was not over the house anyway. But then there's another one.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's one that's a little bit further away towards the driveway. It's a small one, about 6-7 inches, I believe, in diameter.
Okay.
That one's going to have to come down, just based on the way we have to move the house now. But yeah, now we're trying to remediate that by, I think we have 5 trees in there now, or 3 red maples, and we're trying to fix that up because it does need, better strength, better roots in there. But there is one smaller tree that is going to have to go.
Okay. Thank you. And yeah, I saw that the 3 red maples, and I appreciate that. And I think that's appropriate. That's it for me.
Eric.
No, nothing additional. Great project, guys. Thank you for taking the notes and making an improvement. Appreciate it.
Steve, anything?
No, same with me. I'm very impressed. I appreciate this kind of work, and I know it's a lot of work, it's a lot of money, and we're going to have a great project here.
I have no comments either. It's good to me. We're going to hear from the audience, Becky.
Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 20 Cedar Lake Drive notice of intent?
Sarah, why don't you call in on the other line and say it's a really good project?
Wow, they did a lot of work. How amazing.
Yeah.
Don't give people ideas.
It's on.
Nobody's on.
All right. Now then, I'd like to close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Steve Haldeman.
And seconded by?
Second, Eric Gaspar.
First it is. That was Eric.
Oh, no, Steve Halterman.
Okay, Steve and Eric. Okay. All right. Great. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of closing the public hearing? Steve Halterman. Steve Halterman.
I'm in favor. Steve Haldeman.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
David?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. This is David Barnacle concerning 20 Cedar Lake Drive, raise and rebuild of a single-family home and the shoreline work from DEP file number 300-1096 and all of the conditions indicated by Rebecca Chandro, our agent.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Steve Halterman seconds. Discussion. Seeing none. I'll have a vote. Steve Alderman, how do you vote?
Steve Alderman, I'm in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar, I'm in favor.
David?
David Barnacle, I'm in favor.
Stephen Chidesta?
Stephen Chittister, in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Thank you very much. Good luck. Good luck. Yeah.
It's nice.
Okay, thank you for a good evening. Bye.
Yes.
Thanks, Jimmy.
All right, we are now to 650 and 680 Route 15. Continued notice of intent, proposed development of a nursery and tree farm to include a perennial stream crossing, DEV file number 300-1092, Mark Landing Rock. Becky?
Okay, so this was a continuation from our March 2nd meeting. At that time, the commission did request additional information in the form of a peer review by a professional engineer for stormwater and a peer review of the notice of intent by a wetland wildlife consultant. And the commission did also comment and ask for some additional information in regards to alternative analysis and aspects of the project. So since that meeting, I have put out requests for proposals for both of those peer reviews. I've presented those to you. I would recommend, as I said in here, all of the people that submitted are qualified to do these things. For the review of the notice of intent by the wetland wildlife consultant, I would recommend Oxbow Associates for the project. And then also for the engineering, at this time, I would recommend the Graves Engineering.
All right. Any discussion?
I agree with Becky's recommendation of those, to use those third-party reviewers. I think they're very qualified and do a good job.
Stephen?
I agree with Becky's recommendation.
Eric?
Yeah, I agree with what Becky had to say.
David?
David Barnacle, I agree with what Becky had to say.
And Ed Goodwin, I agree also. How do you want to proceed? Becky, you want
Continuation.
go to a continuation?
Shouldn't go to public hearing.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, I would recommend that, you know, you move forward with those, whether you need to take a formal vote on that. I don't know if that's necessary, but right, I would recommend a continuation.
Mark has to ask for it. Mark, will you accept the continuation? Mark?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hi, how you doing? Yeah.
Hi, good. Yeah, I don't know if you provide like contingent approval pending peer reviews? Is that something that you would consider?
Peer reviews as to the reviewer or of the review that they come up with?
Yeah, just pending a successful review. In other words, they're reviewing the work that's done by my civil engineer, my environmental people.
Oh, it would, the way we have done it is, it would be, we would conspire with you. In other words, we would take what we have and put together what you have. It wouldn't, we don't, you know, use their plan over yours or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, is that something where we could, I'm just trying to get something to the operator that's a little more affirmative than a continuation, if you understand.
Well, it takes a continuation in order for us to, you can ask for, us, you can say you don't want a continuation and we'll vote on the project.
Yeah,
That's our option.
I know that talking to McClure that's general practice to peer review the work that's been done.
Yeah.
Yes,
So-
Mark, maybe I'm not sure, you know, what the next step in the process would be is that we'd provide you with those proposals to look at, and then the funds would be sent back here. Once we receive that, we would give the okay. The peer reviewers would review the material, perform a site visit, and then provide a report to us, which would also be provided to you in your consultants to look at. And then we would discuss that at the next meeting, provided everything's ready in time for that. And then we would
Okay.
go from there. If there was something you didn't agree with, or your consultants didn't agree with, then they, could have a rebuttal. It all depends how that works out. Does that clarify maybe what you were asking?
It is. I'm just trying to give the proposed operator a kind of an idea of not so much timeline, but as far as process. Once the peer reviews are completed, I would suspect that then that's enough information that the Conservation Commission can vote on the proposal, the NOI, right?
Right. Well, we're required to vote on it. If you say no, that's enough information, we're required to vote on it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
We don't have the.
It is for me, but the real question is it for you? And if you're requesting the peer review, then we should go down that road and complete.
Okay, so you're accepting it then?
Yes.
Yes, good. All right. Well, that's what we're doing. Then that's what we'll be doing.
Okay.
All right, we'll vote on that now, though. Yeah.
We're going to go to
All in favor?
Do you want me to go to the public first?
Continuing. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, Beck.
That's all right.
Erin?
Erin's on top of it.
I needed my steps. Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line for the continued notice of intent for 650 and 680 Route 15? Anyone on the line for the 650, 680 Route 15 continued notice of intent? No.
All set. There's no one on the line.
Okay. All right. All in favor of to the next meeting, right, Beck?
Correct. May 4th.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, should we vote on approving the
Yes. Yep.
specific
Yeah.
peer review? Okay.
Yep. Why don't we throw them in together? So the recommendation would be that we approve Oxbow Associates and Graves Engineering to do peer reviews, and in addition to that, continue until what, May 4th? Did you say, Beck?
Correct.
Yeah. Do I have a second? So moved. All right. Eric, so moved. David, how do you vote?
David Barnacle in favor.
Steve Alderman. Steve Alderman in favor. Steve Chidester.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric.
Eric Gaspar in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Thanks, Mark. All right.
Hey, thank you. See you next month.
Right. Take care. We're on to 231, 233, 235 Cedar Street. Continued ANRAD DEP file number 300-1090.
So we received a written request from Paul McManus, the applicant's representative, on behalf of the applicant, requesting a continuation. He did come in recently, just so you're aware, and did review our files, and is planning on doing some site recon to kind of figure out what's occurred on the property, to see if things fit within that historic permitting that was done out there. So they did ask for a continuation to the May 5th meeting.
All right. Do we have to tell the audience about that for comment, or can we just go ahead and go
I
ahead?
should just check, make sure there's no one on the line, but.
Okay. All in favor of a continuation to the next meeting?
Let's just check and see if there's any public comment, Mr. Chair.
Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the ANRAD for 231, 233, and 235 Cedar Street?
No one on the line.
All in favor of a continuation? Steve Alderman? Steve Alderman in favor. David Barnacle?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chidester,
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric Gaspar,
Eric Gaspar in favor.
and Ed Goodwin in favor. Okay, we are now to 566 Route 15, continued NOI, construction of a single-family home and associated work. Owner applicant is Silver Tree Realty. And we have the great Glenn Kowalski here with us tonight. How you doing, Glenn?
Everything's well, Ed. I hope everything's well there also.
Yeah. All right, Becky, what do you have to say?
So this was a continuation from the last meeting. We continued it due to the property address concern with the A&R plan. Since then, the A&R plan has been recorded, and I would recommend approval of the project at this time. There wasn't many comments at the last meeting we had there. Sorry, I'm just getting lost in my notes here. So I'd recommend approval, issuance of orders of conditions with our standard conditions for construction, and a condition for having an anti-tracking pad on the driveway.
All right.
Okay, messed up my...
Any comments from the board? Eric? Stephen? David?
No, I wanted to approve it last meeting, so I'm good.
Okay. All right. So with that, Becky, you could check with, to see if there are anybody else in the audience that would like to.
Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 566 Route 15 SWB notice of intent? Nope.
All set.
Thank you, Aaron. I make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Eric
Gaspar.
Okay. Discussion, anyone?
I don't know that we should let Mr. Baum off that easily, for heaven's sakes. He hadn't had to talk on this one yet.
Let's just keep moving. Let's keep moving.
It's not over yet.
All in favor?
Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
All right. Stephen?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Steve?
Steve Halterman in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the SWB NOI construction of a new single-family and associated site work at 566 Route 15, with all of the notes as indicated by the agent.
Do I have a second?
Eric Gaspar.
Having a second, any discussion? All in favor? Steve Halterman?
Halterman in favor.
David Barnacle?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chidester?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric Gaspar?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, we're now to 150 Charlton Road, continued ANRAD, DEP file number 300-1088, Cobra Realty Trust. Becky?
Yep. So this was continued as you requested a peer review for the wetland delineation on site. I did put out 3 requests for proposals, did receive 3 back. I would support selection of all the firms. At the time, I'd recommend GZA Associates to perform the peer review on site.
GZA Associates. All right. Any discussion on that recommendation? Steve, you know?
Steve Halterman, yeah, I know GZA, they're good, and I agree with Becky on their recommendation.
We used them on the site already, Ed. Used them in Sturbridge.
From Sturbridge, yeah.
On Dowdy Road.
Oh, yeah. It's a sad thought. No, really. You don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, on that, we have a motion to approve of BZA.
So moved. I'll second the motion, David Barnacle.
Any discussion? All in favor? Steve Haldeman?
Steve Haldeman in favor?
David Barnacle?
Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chidester?
Stephen Chittister in favor.
And Eric Gaspar?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Ned Goodman in favor. All right? Becky, do we need to have a continuation on that, or is it?
Yes. Yep. And I would recommend continuing to the next meeting, so that way the consultant can be informed, funds are received, and they're given approval to go out on the site.
Do we have an applicant here that can allow a continuation?
Yes, sir. Glenn Krabowski.
Glenn Krabowski's here.
Oh, Glenn, okay, all right, great, thanks, Glenn.
Thank you.
Oh, I see it here, okay, sorry. We got you way out on the right this time. Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue DEP file number 31088 until 1 month from hence.
All right, do you have a second?
Steve Holston, I'll second that.
Yes, a couple of knuckleheads. All right, discussion. All in favor, Eric?
I think we amend that to 28 days hence instead of 1 month hence, but we're just picking now.
Yeah, getting punchy. You approve? You, I'm asking you.
Eric Gaspar approve.
Yeah, Stephen?
Stephen Chittister, I approve of the continuation.
David Barnacle, I approve also.
Steve?
Steve Altman, I approve.
All right, and Ed Goodwin, I approve. We are now to 118.
Just the date, I'm sorry, I just wanted to write the date down. I wasn't here earlier for everything. What's the date for continuance?
May 4th.
Thank you again. Thank you again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're on number 12, which is 118 Lead Mine Lane, notice of intent, continued construction of a single-family home and associated work, DEP file number 300-1073. Becky, what do you say?
So we've continued this out as the applicant works to address the enforcement order. I'll let Glenn give an update on that afterwards, but my recommendation is while they're still working out the enforcement order and bringing that project into compliance, we've talked about this before, but that this notice of intent for new work is continued out. I think that at this time, it's advisable to continue it out for a little bit of time so he can start, now that it's spring, he can get out there and do the restoration and continue to work on getting a plan to you to bring the whole site into compliance. So I'm going to recommend not continuing to the next meeting. I think that it should be bumped out a little bit more than that, and maybe you can, weigh in on what your thoughts are on that. I'm thinking that if they have to come back at the next meeting to give an update on working on the wetland restoration, and then also a proposal to bring the rest of the site into compliance, that we should at least be looking at, mid-May, the earliest, beginning of June for a continuation, because they're just not going to have that done to satisfactory for you at that time with the time they need to get that going. So that would be my recommendation. I think instead of continuing to the next meeting, you bump it out a little bit more, get the project into compliance. He's working on addressing that enforcement order, and then, look at that notice of intent again at that point in time. I don't really want to continue it to the next meeting and take a spot that, we just have to continue it anyways.
What is the date that you say is a little bit of time? June 1st? What's the next meeting?
So we have a meeting May 4th, May 18th, I believe, or 16th, 18th, and then June 1st, so.
June 1st?
Yeah, I think that's a good time where, you know, hopefully they'll have made some really good progress on the other aspects, and maybe you'll consider that application at that time.
All right. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, this is Steve Haldeman. It's very clear. Oh, did you ask Glenn if he had a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Glenn if...
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Glenn, you're on.
Thank you very much. Becky and I had a brief conversation, a little brief, not too brief, today on this matter, both this one and the father's house across the street. And on this one, it was wetland restoration needed plantings, New England wetland plants, the buffer zone restoration needed plantings. There's a channel in the wetland that needs to be addressed, put the stones back, put the organic material back. There's some fill from the roadway that is where this wetland discharges onto the road, which is wetland flag 1A. There's some fill that came off the road and was pushed in. That has to be removed. The swale down the road needs to be concave to ensure that it's carrying the water during storm events. The wetland itself, which was altered, is a headwater wetland right on this lot, but there does have road runoff, and again, storm events of 2 inches or 3 will carry water down the road. We want to make sure the road's stabilized, and so for those 2 restorations, buffer zone and wetland restoration, channel swale in the road, we feel that a month would be fine to this month of May, finishing it up. Hey, we are in May. June that you gave us, excuse me, would be a fine day, fine time to be there and have things in shape so that the commission may, if we present it early enough, be able to look at that and possibly allow the project to move forward if all the remediations are completed by then, and we feel that they will be.
Great. Go ahead, Steve. You had a comment?
I was just going to say to Glenn, I hope they know exactly what they can and cannot do. I know they went in with chainsaws and chopped down some trees, and then said, "Oh, we didn't know, we weren't supposed to do that." So, you know, we're going to trust you.
To comment back, if I could, we've reviewed it twice on the site. We looked at the hill plan, the Norman Hill. We've walked. Again, obviously, we've looked at these wetland issues. We discussed them with Becky, I believe, 2 times, more in depth today, and we're clear on what restoration is needed to bring it into compliance so that we might be able to move forward with the closing of the public hearing so we can build the house.
Okay.
And we're not doing anything without my guidance.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Becky, you want bring that to the audience because I want to. Aaron?
Sure.
Yes, I'm looking at you, Becky, and I'm saying Becky, and I should be saying Aaron, but she's hiding behind the.
Let's give her credit.
Yeah.
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak on the 118 Lead Mine Lane notice of intent?
There's no one on the line.
Thank you, Aaron. Motion for continuation?
Request
to move. What?
Request to continue.
Right, okay, thank you. All right. Do I have a motion, David, for continuation?
David Barnacle makes a motion to continue.
And
to the June meeting.
All right, and Eric Gaspar, second.
Yes.
All right, all in favor? Steve?
Steve Haldeman in favor.
David?
David Barnacle in favor.
Stephen Chidester?
Stephen Chidester in favor.
Eric Gaspar?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Ned Goodwin in favor. Thanks again, Ben.
Thank you, Ed.
Yep. Correct.
You have 15 or 20 seconds of your time. I have gone through other hearings. We're also on for the father's lot. We did present the plan, a draft to Becky, and we're beefing that plan up because it was only a draft. It had a couple more items on it. I would like to be able to, if possible, not come back later on in your agenda and just state that we are working on the remediation. You have a draft. We'll have a stamped plan for you within 7 days. with a couple more items on that draft, and at that time, we would like to be on your next agenda as long as we get it to you in time for the enforcement order on the father's lot on the lake.
Sounds good to me. Glenn, go get a beer.
All right,
thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
My tie. I'm only kidding. Thank you.
Put a check mark on 19, Ed.
Yeah.
Thank you again for your time and hearing me early. Tk you. Thank you very much.
All right, we are now on to 91 Clark Road. Continued notice of intent, construction of a single-family home and associated work. DP file number 300-1095. All right, Beck?
Okay.
Where are we going with that?
Yep, so this is a continuation from the last meeting. We did go back out. We needed a little more additional information. We went out and did that site visit to look at the wetland after, thaw conditions and snow cover. So we did that site visit. There were some questions and concerns with the wetland delineation near Clark Road with the culvert, associated with the culvert, and some filled in areas from, accumulation of material coming out of the culvert. I did receive an email from the applicant who was interested in buying the property. He did meet us on site when we were out there. He just sent me an email. He said, unfortunately, himself and his representative were unable to attend tonight. They would like to ask the board to vote on the plans that have been submitted on his behalf from Scott Morrison of Ecotech. Said time is very important to us due to the fact that we have our household and need clarification one way or another in regards to this lot at 91 Clark Road. So, where we had left it was that the board, based off that site visit, needed some additional information in regards to support the wetland delineation or to change the wetland delineation. And that would be in the form of having that wetland consultant go back out to the site, relook at that, do some additional soil augering, BVW data sheet specifically for that area, looking at vegetation now that we've had, herbaceous stuff starting to come out, etc. So they have not submitted any additional information, and they're asking you to vote on what's in front of you. Without that additional information, my recommendation would have to be that you'd have to deny that project for lack of information.
Okay. I agree. That's what we need to do.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we reject the project as indicated by the agent, and that would be the project at 91 Clark Road.
For insufficient information.
I'm just going to ask that we go to public comment first.
Yep, go ahead.
Is there anyone on the line that would like to speak to the 91 Clark Road continued notice of intent?
Nope. There's no one on the line.
Mr. Chairman, same motion as made previously.
Mr. Chair, just a point of order. Do we need to close the hearing before we make the motion to deny it, or?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we do need to close the public hearing. So David's motion is to close the public hearing. Right, David?
Okay. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was part two. I heard.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying what we wanted to do, Stephen. I got a second on that?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Yes, you did.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of closing the public hearing? Stephen?
Stephen Chittister, in favor.
David?
David Barnacle, in favor.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar, in favor.
Steve Haldeman?
Steve Haldeman, in favor.
And Ed Gooder in favor. All right, David, now you can hit him with the other one.
I'd like to make a motion that we reject for a lack of or insufficient amount of information DEP file number 300-1095 91 Clark Road.
Do I have a second?
Steve Haldeman, I'll second. Steve, I thought you seconded it before.
Oh, there we go.
All right.
You know.
All in favor? Stephen?
Stephen Chittister, in favor of the motion.
Dave Barnacle?
Dave Barnacle in favor of the motion.
Eric?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Steve Haldeman?
Steve Haldeman in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. All right. We are now to wetland decisions.
So we already, yep, we already did
Well,
all of
did that.
those.
Yeah, we're on old business.
Yep, we're on number 18.
Oh, yeah, I checked them off on the, okay.
Yeah, don't slow us down here.
I'm trying. Last week I went to CPF, and all right. Enforcement order, 205B and 205C, Podunk Pike enforcement order. Becky, what do you have for us here?
Yep, so just a summary on the status here. So we issued this enforcement order last fall. We did bring this up as discussion on the March 2nd meeting. And at that time, we did discuss the outstanding enforcement order. What was discussed was providing additional time to bring the project into compliance. The appeal period had passed for that. So what we did was I did issue a letter as discussed on your behalf, giving them an additional 21 days from the issuance of that letter to bring the project into compliance. I have not received any information from them. We did also send out an additional letter in regards to information of some potential work occurring out there. And we did get back those letters. We did send those certified, and they were unaccepted and sent back to our office. We had emailed it to the attorney and emailed it and sent it back out regular mail as well. I mean, the enforcement order is outstanding, and I would recommend that you know, you look to what other options are available to you to bring projects into compliance when they're not complying with an enforcement order. And then that next step would be to refer that to town council to seek compliance in Superior Court.
All right, gentlemen, for discussion. Steve Haldeman.
Steve Haldeman, I agree. It's time. Thank you, Becky.
Eric?
Yeah, I can't see any other way forward. If they're not compliant and they're not responsive, then yeah.
All right, David?
And ignore an enforcement order. I agree.
And Stephen? He's off.
Abstain from the discussion.
What?
Abstention.
I'm recused.
Oh, okay. All right. Yep, sorry. Yeah. I agree.
Mr. Chairman.
Becky, I think.
We might have someone on the phone line here.
Yeah, I've been on the phone. I've been trying to be heard here.
Hold on, they can't hear you.
This is Donald O'Neill. I'm a lawyer on behalf of the applicant.
Yeah, Don, you're on the phone line, so the phone line isn't part of the regular meeting. We ask you to go in, so we don't keep this volume up until we come over to ask for public comment. So they haven't been able to hear you, so I'm gonna turn the volume up so you can speak, okay?
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We did receive, I received a letter last Wednesday, and that was emailed to me. A copy of it was emailed to me. It's a 2-page letter. Some of it goes back for things going back over a couple of years. Some of it is prospective. And my intent was to respond to that letter in writing. As I said, I received it Wednesday. You know, we got Thursday, and then Good Friday, and then Easter. Yesterday was Monday. Today is Tuesday. And it has a number of allegations which we absolutely dispute. And it's clear that the board took some good deal of time in terms of getting this letter together and sending it off. And I would like to have an opportunity to respond. However, I want to respond in writing so that there's a clear record of our response to the allegations set forth in the letter. And I can assure you that there were some comments regarding future events in May and June, which are actually some distance off, but I can let you know that those events are not happening. There is still a COVID-19 situation going on, so none of those events are happening, so that's completely false in terms of that they are scheduled or going to happen. And I don't want to get into the details on each of the items, but I'm requesting an opportunity to respond in writing, and I would have a response to you prior to your next meeting so that you can take it up at that time. As you know, we have done extensive work out there on the trail system. The intent now is with the Podunk Road property is to do our level best to remove everything from your jurisdiction. And I understand that it's very close to being the case, and in a lot of cases, everything is already outside the 100-foot jurisdiction. It's just looking at the 200-foot jurisdiction. So a tremendous amount of progress has been made out there, and we would like the opportunity to respond in writing, and I'd like the record to reflect that I'm requesting that opportunity in response to a letter which I received 3 or 4 business days ago, requires a response in writing with an opportunity to investigate the various things that are raised in the letter. So that's my request.
So this Becky, I just want to add, I mean, there's two separate letters, Dawn, so maybe if we could separate those out. The letter that Dawn's referring to is the one where we received some additional information about potential work occurring out there, and then that there's planned events out there. So I would recommend allowing him to have that response. That's one of the letters. The other letter was sent in regards to giving that additional 21 days, as I discussed, for the enforcement order. So maybe it's useful to discuss those letters separately, but I do agree that, you know, you could give them the opportunity to reply to that letter, but how you want to handle the enforcement order, that's up to you as well. But I would recommend looking at them separately and discussing them.
Mr. Chairman, am I allowed to make a comment?
Yeah, that's where we're at.
I would like to take Eric's place for a second and indicate, Mr. O'Neill, you accused us of lying when we indicated on a letter that there were activities taking place, and at the time that the letters were issued, those activities were still in place. We recently received an indication from the people who run those activities that they had canceled everything, and it had nothing to do with the recent virus problem. It had to do with the problems that they were having, and thus they removed them. It had nothing to do with us, and you're accusing us of lying when we write it.
No, I'm not accusing you of anything. You're accusing us of lying. I'm telling you that the government of Massachusetts did not allow any of those programs, denied any requests for them. There are also future events, which means they have not taken place yet. They're not scheduled for months, and they're not going to happen.
Okay,
I'm not accusing anybody of lying at all.
You've requested that we continue this and wait for your letter, and that's what I recommend.
Your letter, yes. I'm not going to go point by point on a 2-page letter.
Okay. The only thing
Mr. Chair, could I ask a question of Mr. O'Neill?
No, I think we're making a mistake to, he's called in, he's interested in responding to, what we're trying to make a decision on here, and it seems reasonable to me that we would allow him to, response. We've had other letters and not from this applicant, but from people that are involved in it, so we've got more.
Okay, I guess my comment then, without asking him, is to say that if the applicant refused acceptance of a letter, and it seems like we're talking about two separate letters, that if they are refusing acceptance, that is not on us, that is on them. And I don't have any tolerance or patience for any of this any longer myself. I understand the second letter they may have just received, and I can accept that. But if they, in my personal opinion, we should refer this to council, and we should not give any more energy to this applicant or to his attorney for the continual gaslighting that has been brought on us. And if the applicant, like I said at the top, refuses to accept the letter, that's not on us. So I'll set my piece.
Anybody else want to comment? I'd like to recommend that we continue our decision on this until the next meeting and give them a chance to respond to the letter. As he's calling, asking to respond to the letter, it would seem to me to be a reasonable request.
Ed, another delaying tactic. This has been going on for years.
There's nothing going on that they can be delaying between now and the next meeting. I've got it from the sports events people. Becky has a letter from them. There's nothing going on. There's nothing going on in Massachusetts.
We understand that. We all got a copy of that letter.
Why was it included in the letter to us then, raising the specter of an event when you knew that no event was scheduled or taking place?
That's not the correct time frame, yeah.
Your timing is wrong. Your timing is wrong.
I mean,
that came after, in response to the letter.
Okay.
So let's,
well, at least that's one item that I don't need to respond to. You have several more that require an investigation and require a response.
Okay. Don't speak without asking to speak. Let's move forward. Let's go forward and allow them to, respond. I see no harm in it.
There are two letters, and Becky, rightly so, recommended we separate those out. So we need to talk about which letter and, right, but we're talking about moving forward with the attorney for Sturbridge.
Well, let's vote on it. I mean, we have two ways we can go. We can continue this and go to our attorney, or we can delay it until the next meeting and then go to our attorney if we're not, when we have more information on it. But which way do you want to vote? I mean, that's Eric.
I mean, I said my piece. I would prefer to be done with this and refer to the attorney.
Okay.
Myself.
David?
I don't need to hear anything else.
David?
I agree.
You agree with Eric? Steve?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, I disagree. So
if I might interject, Russ Jennings.
I think we've just made a decision, Russ, on this. So.
Well, I think you discussed making a decision. You didn't actually take a vote on it. And prior to you doing such, I would just ask that you listen to what I have to say for about 1 minute.
All right, 1 minute it is. Go ahead.
All right. So at this point in time, I can tell you that Andy Baum with Summit Engineering is doing what he is needing to do to submit the plans to you to, as Don O'Neill stated, take the trail out of the buffer zone so that it is not in jurisdiction and there is no issue with the Conservation Commission and a restoration plan. that is probably days away from being submitted. I would hope that by your next meeting, this would be in your hands and it would be all set, good to go for your comment and review. If you so choose to go to your attorney at this point in time, the only thing you're doing is delaying the inevitable and costing the town additional funds and resources, which is what's going to happen, because we're going to be right back in your lap, whether it's 1 month from now, 6 months from now. It really doesn't matter, because we're going to go to the judge, we're going to show him the work that's being done. He's going to say the applicant is trying to come into compliance, which we are, and we're going to say the plans are ready, here they are. We asked at this point in time to submit them, and, you know, we had winter to contend with, so on and so forth. So I would just give you that information, and if you so choose to make your decision in whichever direction, I guess we'll see you, whether it's 1 month from now or 6 months from now, after you spend time and resources. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the agent has a comment.
David, come on, I don't want to have this a back and forth.
The agent.
He's given his input. I'll redo it. I mean, there's voting here.
Ed, he's saying that Becky has a comment.
Oh, okay. All right, I'm sorry, I didn't.
That's okay.
Thank you, Steve.
I was just going to add that that's new information that Mr. Jennings has submitted. That's not information that's been provided to us before. Working on the restoration plan is what you were looking for. Had that been stated before, I think maybe you would have looked at that information differently. That was what we were asking in that letter. If we had that information before, I think that you would have been happy to hear that they're working on a restoration plan. That wasn't provided before. And I just wanted to make a comment before, for the record, that on both the Spartan and the Tough Mudder websites, there was advertisements for both of those events and tickets being sold, that you could buy tickets on there. And that's what that information was. So I just wanted to clarify that's why that was stated.
All right. I'll bring it up one more time. We are discussing whether we move forward with legal action or wait a month.
You have a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to wait and hear what the additional information is before we go take legal action.
How long is that?
Do I have a second?
How long?
Till our next meeting.
May 4th. I'll second your motion, Ed.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Eric?
All right, the practical side of me who doesn't want to incur legal fees agrees with you, Ed, but I'm not happy about that vote. So yes, I agree.
David?
David Barnacle, unfortunately, is forced into agreeing.
Steve?
Steve Haldeman, I feel the same way. I'm not happy about it, but let's wait a month and hear what they say. And we're going to make a decision in a month, or whenever May 4th is. 28 days. So yes, I agree.
All right.
We also make a suggestion, Mr. Chairman, that if a certified letter comes, it's better to open it and answer it than it is to have it rejected, so that we have to go through this charade again.
And I would just add before they get off that we asked for materials to be provided 7 days in advance of the meeting, so that way it can be given to the board in time to review before the meeting. Right. So it would be 3 weeks from today that we'd ask for that material.
I would hope personally that you would have it a lot sooner than that. Andy Baum was going to be on the call, but maybe he's having problems connecting or in another meeting, I'm not sure. He was going to speak to the deliverance of those plans.
He was on earlier.
He's on.
Okay. Oh, I see Andy. Yep, he's on. Maybe, Andy, you can address the timing as far as the plans to the board. Is that doable within the next week to 10 days?
Yes, I've got a draft that we need to go over with the applicant, Mr. Chairman. of how we want to realign those, and then discuss what actions they want to take for the restoration of the trails that are out there, and then we'll be able to submit something to the commission to review.
All right, thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so 7 days before, Becky, what's 7 days before the 1st?
I think it's April 27th. Let me look. April 27th.
So Andy, April 27th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, we are now on to 118 Leadmine, and we don't have to do anything with that.
Oh, we did it.
We did it. All right. And 20, enforcement policy.
We have to ask for continuation.
Sorry, I got up. Are you waiting?
Becky and I had some problems in communicating, as
Oh, he asked for it. You want to vote on it? Yeah, that's for 118 Leadmine.
Well, that's just enforcement order discussion, so.
Oh, but then, do we need? Yeah, it's old business. We don't need to continue.
Oh, I'm
do we?
sorry.
Yeah.
We're moving that?
All right,
continue with the old business.
Just continued old business.
continued over. Yeah, just walking by, guys. Okay, enforcement policy, staff notes, Becky?
So for agent report, the only thing that I was gonna mention, was that a couple weeks ago, I did, have to issue a cease and desist on a project site. I was reported of work occurring off of Camp Road. I did go out, the property owner was out there. They did stop work. They did put together, a plan for sediment erosion controls. The engineer came out on site. They are working to submit a filing. I have gone back out and looked at the erosion sedimentation controls, which are holding up well. They do understand what they need to do, and we should be getting a filing in for maybe not our next meeting, but the following meeting for that work. So I just wanted to make you aware of that.
What's the address?
It's 28 Camp Road, not to be confused with 28B Camp Road. And it's also 704 Main Street that comes off of both properties, so. And obviously I did speak to Ed about it previously, so.
All right, is that it for enforcement policies?
I'm going to continue with old business until Becky and I can straighten this thing out. Unless you want to have a vote on it tonight, Beck.
What, the enforcement policy?
Yeah.
That's up to you guys. I don't know if everyone's looked at it or any comments. I mean, I haven't received any.
I have received no comment.
I've looked at it, and I think it's good, and I think that it needs to be ground-proofed or checked against some of the issues that we've had in the past and see how it works. And
That's a good idea.
I did, this is David Barnacle. I should have introduced myself, sorry. I did do several what-ifs when I was putting the wording together and I was crossing out some of the wording, and it seemed to pass okay. But what Becky and I would like to do is, if you approve of this, we'd like to be able to send it to our attorney to make sure that he approves of it and see if that's going to take care of the problems. Because the way that we try to establish the wording is inclusive of the ideas that our town administrator had given us relative to how the judicial process actually works. He had no clue about before. So that's one of the reasons why the 14 days and the 21 days are specifically stipulated in the wording that we want to put into our manual.
David, I read your first rendition. How different is the most recent one?
It's a little bit different.
Because I didn't read this one. Becky had said to me that, we weren't going to go over it tonight. We were going to take it and read it and then have it for the next meeting. And now I haven't read it. So I can't, whatever you guys want to do. Eric, did you read it?
Oh, what is Becky's?
Yeah, I read through it, and you know, I was just going to ask, you know, to make sure that we have our attorney review that, because you know, if there was one thing to Jeff's point from a few months ago, we have to have a plan. We have to stick to it, and it needs to be consistent. And it seems like what we've outlined there. What David's outlined there with Becky fits that mold. So I think the only last test is having the attorney review it. And I'd like to get any notes from them before we vote on it, because if there's any changes, you know, I'd rather just vote on it once, unless somebody has a different opinion that can sway me. But
Becky had also done some research with the Spencer Conservation Commission. This seemed to fit with sort of the wording that they were using. One of the changes or one of the additions that we made was the final line. There is at least a line in there now that indicates clearly when the signing will cease, so that they know that the signing doesn't go on forever and ever.
Do I have a motion to send it to council for review?
I will make that motion. David Barnacle.
Do I have a second?
No. I'll second it. Eric Gaspar.
Discussion? All in favor? Eric?
Yep, Eric Gaspar, in favor.
Steve?
Yeah, I'm in favor.
David?
David Barnacle in favor.
I'm going to abstain because I didn't read the last version, but I'm in favor. Generally, I'm in favor of it. With Stephen?
This is Stephen. I'm in favor too.
Okay, good. All right, Becky, so you pass it by legal and see what they think of it. All right.
Could I just make a suggestion, is that everybody read it and think about the cases that we've had and problems that we've had doing enforcement, and just think about how that would work with this. And 90% of the time, I think it's good, but I think issues like Advantage going in and cutting down 19 trees, and we could do nothing. That guy up there off of, I forgot what road it's off of, that filled, I think it was 600 cubic yards into a wetland. That's 60 yards. And we didn't do anything except he restored it, but, you know, I don't know, I had a lot of... Anyway, I just ask people to read it and say, yeah, this will work for anything, or not, you know, and see what the lawyer says. You know, the timelines and all that are perfect. I have no problem with it. That fits right in with, you know, the sort of thing DEP would do. And so, I'm sending it off to the lawyer, but I want everybody to look at it. We are the ones that have the experience over the last years of trying to do enforcement, and this is a great document.
Yeah, all right. I'm going to leave it there. Becky, what else?
The only thing left on here is new business. Obviously, next meeting date, site visit schedule, don't really need to go over that. We also have, I put on here, discussion about the landfill. So, recently, we have a couple project sites located along Hammett Brook that have seen discolored water. One, we thought it had to do with the project site that's going on. And both of those project sites made me aware that, I mean, it's not coming from their projects. And actually, both commented that Hammett Brook, you know, originates by the landfill. And they thought that the origins of what's the discolored water that they were seeing out there may be coming from that area. So I wanted to bring it to your attention. have had a quick discussion with Board of Health. There is some monitoring that occurs in that area. I think it's something that probably needs to be looked into.
Yeah, we should get particularly that one test well at the old Southbridge landfill where we were.
Yep.
Looked at it. Linda thinks it's only about 10 feet deep, so I don't know what we're going to find with it, but she said you were going to get together with Ken. Is that his name?
Yeah, and go out and take a look at it. I mean, I think that obviously a professional is going to need to do some sampling out there. Look at, I'm not sure, it seems like there's a lot of wells out there, not sure how many wells are being sampled, what are the depths they're sampling at, are they sampling the one in the back that we saw back there, and, probably the surface water collection too.
Yeah, that settles out. I can show you that in my house. This was not settling out. Right, Steve?
No, that's correct. That was still in suspension.
Yeah.
The colloid. I guess the question is, what should they sample for? What should they measure?
I don't know. What do you recommend? Steve?
I'd give a call to Bureau of Waste Bureau of Waste Prevention, if that's what they're still called, who deals with landfills and could give us some ideas of what they should be measuring. There's some basic things about solid solids, look for oil kind of things, but I didn't see a sheen. There's basic things that you could fingerprint and say, yeah, here's some sediment, and we've got the sediment in the wells, and so it's cause and effect. It's tricky catching it in the wells, catching it at the right depth. But I think if we saw it in the water column, and there's no other source except that landfill, that's a start.
Mr. Chidester has some recent experience in those testing.
Yeah, I'm thinking that it might be wise to start with, as you mentioned, Ed, get a sample from that one specific well that we observed next to the water, and maybe get some water samples immediately adjacent to the landfill. That would be a good start.
What would you test them for, Steve?
I don't. There's a panel, I think, but I'm not the expert on that really. So we would need to get some input on what we should be sampling for from an expert. And the other thing I personally would like to see, whatever information we have, I'd like to see a map of those monitoring wells. There must be one in existence somewhere. If the Board of Health probably has it. I'd like to know what wells exist and what depths they're at, and just whatever information we can get on historical sampling. When was the last time any sampling was done out there? What were they sampling for previously? Any kind of historical information we have on that.
All right. Becky, can you work with Ken to see what you could figure out what he's got? I don't want to go outside to outside sources until we figure we have.
Well, the data that they've already collected is there's going to be an organics panel, a series of organic compounds, and there's going to be a series of inorganic compounds that would include some metals. So, I mean, that's what they would be sampling for if they're, in their existing program, is to look for organics and then look for inorganics. They should have some data. And again, like I say, look at some of the data out of the wells, and then look at some of the data in the water body. And the Saugus landfill is closed because I started the ball rolling doing exactly that when I worked for DEP, Coastal Monitoring Program. And it is history now. And that's the way I did it.
Jeff, would you?
No, Mr. Chair, I just don't understand. Is this in jurisdiction?
Yes.
It's in the jurisdiction. The wetland, the landfill is in the jurisdiction.
Landfill, no. Wetlands, yes.
Well,
I think what he's asking is the landfill located within wetland jurisdiction, and yes, it's right up against the wetlands there, so it's in the buffer zone, yeah.
So, so Becky, that would be what,
Okay.
I talked to Linda and,
Yep.
right? Anything else?
I think it's time for Stephen to make a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor? I see the hand. All right.
I saw the agenda. I figured this was going to be 11 o'clock, so eureka. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. All right. Have a good month, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Just Becky on this one.